Before we get started, this episode is sponsored by our Patreon at patreon.com/OnePiecePodcast. Check out 3 full-length brand new episodes out right now, including one with Steve and Alex talking about Star Wars, another one with me and Steve talking about the last 10 years of podcasting, and I do the same thing with Ed talking about 600 episodes of the One Piece podcast. All that, plus the full-length One Piece podcast goes to Japan documentary, 3,000 photos from our most recent trip to Japan, and a lot more, including extended episodes, exclusives, outtakes, so much more, all at patreon.com/OnePiecePodcast. Enjoy the show. This is the One Piece Podcast, episode 602 for January 6th, 2020. My name is Zach.
And my name is Ed.
My name is Steve.
And my name is Alex.
And on today's show, we have very special guests as usual, translator for One Piece in Shonen Jump and Manga Plus. We have Stephen Paul with us. How's it going, Stephen?
Hey, the day has finally arrived.
That there's more One Piece?
Yeah. That was a long break.
Yeah, that was. We also have, he is a director on Rick and Morty and Teen Titans Go. Brian Newton's with us this week. How's it going, Brian?
Yeah, the day has arrived. Star Wars is officially over. It's all over. No more Star Wars, kids. I don't know what Mandalorian is. This is what the kids tell me about.
There's a baby something. And we also have, last but certainly not least, very special guest this week. He co-hosts a podcast with Steve that's not this one. The Deep End, Cartoons 101, a whole other bunch of stuff I'm sure you know him from. Matt J's with us. How's it going, Matt?
Hello, I'm glad Star Wars is dead. Well, let's just get right into it. I dance on its grave.
No one's ever really gone.
Yeah.
Except Emperor Palpatine.
Oh, we're starting with spoilers quick.
He's really dead. He's very dead. Right?
Is he really?
No,
so Matt,
win at the end of the movie. That's how it ended.
Matt, so when did you catch up with One Piece? Was that today?
Today, yeah. Well, I mean, the new chapter was today, but
that's true.
My goal was to be caught up by the end of 2019, and I had a bit of a hectic end of 2019, so I let it go a couple days, and today I read about the last 5 or 6 chapters, and I've officially read all of One Piece. I'm caught up.
Woo! Congrats!
Right.
Yeah,
not an easy task.
It's not. I really feel like I pushed myself. They were I dropped off for 6 or 7 months. Steve knows this because we've talked about it, but I was reading 100 chapters a week for a month for I was really powering through it. And I actually read it. I read one. I had a subscription to Shonen Jump when it first came here. So I read One Piece the second you could read it in English legally. And then I dropped off for about 18 years, but now I'm back and I'm all in. I love it so much. It's my favorite.
And we made you smoke the whole pack.
Yeah, I smoked all 960 whatever packs of it.
Now you're really addicted. So yeah, how was that journey to today?
It was amazing. It was really comforting to have this monolithic thing that's if I ever need something to entertain me or fill the void for a second and not be alone with my own thoughts. I always had something to go back to because I'm really I'll just click through Netflix or the Criterion Channel or whatever for hours and hours and never pick anything. It's good to have One Piece is right there. I could always read. I could read 10 chapters in a row, and now I'm back to what do I do now?
Watch the anime.
Yeah, I just read. Yeah, I gotta start really. I barely watched the anime really. I've watched a handful of it really. But I think 20th Century Boys. I think I'm going back to my reread of that.
That's a good choice. You can never read that too many times. So Matt, do you want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself? You, I think, are the only other person when I listen to your podcast, I'm I would also be saying, oh, we should do a podcast about that and that and that. It's like, okay, good. Someone else is also trying to do all these things, so I don't have to.
Yeah, that's like the way my brain works, is that I just like too many things. I'm into too many things. I'm currently staring at like 4 hobbies that I've just let lapse at the moment, like Gundams and comics and really because of One Piece, really. But I make Cartoons 101, which is a podcast on Patreon about animation. I make the Adult Swim Show with Steve. I'm a producer of the Channel 101 podcast, if you guys know what Channel 101 is. And I work with them on a lot of cool stuff that's coming up in the year. But yeah, and my sickness is what you just said, is if I like something, I do start a podcast about it. I am ill and I have to talk about it and monetize it in some way.
Well, the question is, I think you said this right before you started the Adult Swim one with Steve, something like, how do people like something and not want to start a podcast about it? And it's a good question, I think. Yeah.
When you live in Los Angeles, it's like, it's a good excuse to like make friends. I just invite people over. I see all my friends every like 2 or 3 months because they're on my podcasts all the time. And you know what? That's my socializing.
This is Los Angeles. Everyone has a podcast.
Yeah.
You see, for me, it's the opposite. Everyone left once I started my podcast, as if fleeing my podcast, Steve. But it's okay. I'll be okay.
You wouldn't. You just like, you would never leave my dorm room. You just, I had to kick you out.
Yeah. I'm gonna go cry in a corner, but before that, we have a very big chapter of One Piece this week. You joined us at an auspicious time, Matt. We're gonna be going through chapter 967. Trying to take us way back here to Roger's adventure. We're gonna do our anime recaps I guess next week with Sam. We're also gonna be, there's somehow no chapter next week for One Piece, so we'll be going through volume 95 next week. But we also have, of course, this week Piece Together, and a lot more. Hopefully, we'll see. I don't know. Is there anything else at the top of the show that I should mention? I feel like even though we've been away for the holidays, not a ton has happened. I mean, unless you guys have anything.
Jump Fest, I think, was pretty by the numbers, right?
Yeah, and we talked about that a little last time.
We did. I don't think we mentioned that, like, I feel so bad for these guys, but like Shueisha put up a part on the One Piece like official site that is literally like, here's the updates to all the Vivre cards, and it is like dozens, maybe hundreds of entries deep, and most of it is like typos and like weird little things like, oh, we used the wrong kanji here, but it does include some things that did get corrected or updated, including the stuff like that Shanks was not one of the 4 emperors when we saw him with Luffy at the start of the series, things like that, where people were like, wait, that can't be right. And so they went back and fixed some things, but there's just a ton of stuff. And it's all, of course, in Japanese, since the product is only in Japanese. But I did think that was kind of interesting.
I like the binder with the pretty pictures in it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, that's about my Vivre card level of knowledge. I think that's about everything. I would be remiss if I didn't mention our Patreon. We have 3 brand new full-length episodes we put on there, including one with Ed and me talking about having 600 episodes, one with Steve and me, where it's basically my interview with Steve. And we put a little preview of that on last week.
Crazy idea, bad pitch.
No, it's a really, really good episode. We just talk about all the story arcs in the One Piece podcast and where we are today. And last but not least, we have the return of 20 Minutes of Bullshit with Alex and Steve. And you guys talked about Rise of Skywalker, which we already touched on a little somehow in the first 10 minutes of this podcast. There's that. There's like 3,000 pictures from our trip to Japan. Alternate images and titles from Maddie and Steve, all that. Patreon.com/One Piece Podcast. And a full-length documentary. Patreon.com/One Piece Podcast. It's all there. Enjoy it. With that out of the way, you guys want to talk about this chapter?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Ed, chill.
Like, I'm really excited.
This is the manga recap for chapter 967, Roger's Adventure. You can read this chapter and all chapters as soon as they come out at shonenjump.viz.com and mangaplus.shueisha.co.jp, sometimes at different times. Anyway, Ed, please explain what the hell is happening on this color spread.
Well, this is the Straw Hat Pirates depicted with the boy band Arashi, who have been extremely popular in Japan since the late 90s, and it seems to me like these are like nasty caricatures of them. Like,
all right, I want to talk
very
about
ugly.
Odin.
I
want to talk about Odin's caricatures here. Because a lot of the times he finds the need to just disinclude their tongues. It's a choice he makes on. We've seen him do it in the past.
They all look like they've had Michael Jackson levels of plastic surgery. Like, maybe they have in real life, but
yeah, they might be.
This is really like kind of insulting.
This is how we draw humans.
I don't know. Well, I don't know how much image control like Japanese pop stars have because they signed off on this.
Yeah, I know, it's really weird looking.
No, it's Oda. You don't say no to Oda. He gets to draw you however you want. He wants.
Like, it's almost
completely honest here.
Too realistic.
To be completely honest here, if Oda drew you and it was dog shit ugly, who gives a shit? Oda still drew you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You could draw like some sort of. Yeah, go ahead.
I know it's a matter of perspective. But everybody else looks like they have gigantic heads except for Sanji.
No, it's all over. I was literally going to say the exact same thing, and maybe Frankie.
Yeah. They all kind of look like Ivanka.
Jinbei's a scale too.
No, Frankie's got tiny little baby arms now.
Little baby arms.
I like their mugs. I want all those like little barrel mugs.
Those exist. Yeah.
I'm gonna buy them then.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna. I didn't want to indulge that habit, but yeah, no, they exist. That's a cool piece of merch that they have.
Also, you noticed Zoro has Enma on him.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Okay.
My question is, like, who is this dick in the middle who has the straw hat on his head? Is he the new broom boy? Is he the hero of future One Piece?
Like, his is the worst one. Like,
yeah,
he's right.
His teeth look like lips or something. Like, what's going on there?
It's meant to signify, it's clearly meant to signify that even we can have rubber powers.
Oh, yeah, that's not one of my favorite openings. Listen to our opening.
We have rubber powers.
Have you guys watched the music video?
No,
not with sound.
Oh my god! Well, I guess you're not missing out, or I don't know. I'm not going to be the judge of music, but awesome music video. Mainly because we just see Jinbei is just part of the crew now, and I hate that. That's the first thing we got to see of him being in the crew is him dick riding a boy band.
I'm watching the video right now. It is cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, they like this is a really big deal. Actually, like they're one of Johnny's like the original like Johnny's boy band. It's
who's Johnny?
Oh no, I don't know what he's
pedophile.
talking about.
Oh.
I was like the half man, half motorcycle from Chrono Trigger. He's a pedophile.
Probably. You know what?
I've already lost this podcast.
The motophile. Is that a thing?
I'm gonna start going off about Jeffy Epstein.
Well, I'm sure this was like a big deal in Japan. I mean, it's cool.
No, I was going to say Japanese Twitter really did blow up about this. Like, since I follow way too many of the, like the One Piece Japanese feeds, it was all over the place. Yeah.
I like how I do like how the boats are holding hands.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't notice that. Yeah.
The system, the boat.
Who's that lady?
Yeah.
So that's is that Arashi's logo? Because it was also on the cover of Jump this week.
Looks like a Funko Pop.
Mm.
I mean, it does.
I mean,
Actually,
because of the
kinda looks like
soulless eyes. Any other thoughts on? Well, Jinbei this is very cool because this is the first time we see Jinbei in any real color
Jinbei's
spread.
first color spread as a straw hat. Well, he was on that post-Punk Hazard one, so.
He was on that, and he was on the YouTube, like the official YouTube channel has a banner, and that Oda drew, and he is on that. But those are Jinbei's few and far between. Still, I'll celebrate when it's like a real color spread, I guess. But no offense, but yeah,
they're having a picnic or something.
Yeah, this isn't going to be one of my favorites, and I hope it's not on the calendar. It's June.
Jinbei deserves a nice picnic. Give him a picnic.
It's June, time for the. Oh my God.
Yeah. I was gonna ask if you think this is gonna be in the calendar, but I don't think so.
I hope not.
I don't think so. Ed, you wanna let's start the chapter.
Sure. All right. So, with the help of Gonfor, the god atop the clouds, we descended safely back to the sea below and proceeded to a city of shipbuilders. Let me just say, I want to see that.
Like, I'm so mad.
What? Oda I know he thinks about this. He's thinking this flashback is too long, so he's just going to put this in as an aside at the beginning of a chapter. Like, we aren't going to want to see it.
I want to see Robot Pirate Island.
So a familiar argument is occurring on Roger's ship, North Pole. No, South Pole, as seen in chapter 19.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they both get bonked on the head by Rayleigh. And, so they say, knock it off, both of you. You ever stop squabbling? And Roger he's shocked by something. He says, what did you say? Those stones are in your countries too? Like, yeah, red ones, though. Dogstorm, Cat Viper, and Odin. And Roger just goes white in the eyes. Like, that's the kind I need most. Why didn't you say something? And
so I just want to make sure the one in Wano is the one Kaido currently has, we'd assume at this point.
Presumably,
right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he already has the rope poneglyph sheet that he stole from Linlin. And this is a sexy Big Mom. Look at that.
Well, she's still younger.
Well, yeah, she went through the sexy stage in the middle. She kind of and then goes back to even sexier
famous
Big Mom.
Sexy stages. Yeah.
That's how it happens.
Nose job and some lipo.
Yeah. And he's got a hunch about where another one is, and they're like, "Oh, way to go, Captain!" But Roger is such a kid. He's like, "I've got it in my grasp. Where is this guiding me? We're going to gather all four of them. We're going to do it."
Yeah, I'm sure you guys have talked about this, but it's really interesting seeing Roger as like a character.
Mm-hmm.
Like not as just a figure or like a person from the past. Like he's like, we're seeing him like freak out. We're seeing him have wants. We're seeing him like interact with people on a human level. And I think that's really interesting. And it's really cool that 1,000 fucking chapters into this comic that can like happen to me.
I mean,
for the longest time,
it's literally Roger's adventure. Yeah. So yeah,
like for the longest time, we had Roger as the voice of the narration in the opening song. You know, once an episode, and we also had like the episode in Logtown, and that was it. Like that was all we knew about Roger.
The very first page, I think we mentioned this last time. The very first page in One Piece is Roger's speech, I think, before he gets executed. So it is really surreal. I mean. Doing this for as long as we have too, and then like, oh, Roger's talking and yelling and doing all this stuff.
It was strange at first to see him emoting the way that he has in the last few chapters, because his image was just like, okay, the guy, his eyes are shaded, like he's got the cocky grin where he's daring people to find his treasure or whatever, but he seems like more menacing. And now that you've seen him as a person, it's easier to look at that initial image and be like, oh, that's just like the public perception of him. And this is like the actual character. And, the fact that they're at odds is kind of a part of the point.
He loves kids.
Well, what's funny is like none of this seems unfamiliar too, because like we're familiar with like who Roger, or at least who closely emulates Roger. Even some of these poses on this page, I'm like, I've seen that face before. I've seen that expression before. Because I mean, we've been following Roger.
Luffy.
Yeah, we've been following this type of character the whole way through. So,
which is weird because they're not related.
Yeah,
as far as we know.
Yeah, we don't.
I mean, he's a lot more like Luffy's a lot more like Roger, and Ace is sort of a lot more like Dragon was.
Yeah. No,
to be fair,
still haven't gotten that true connection.
Gene Pool's always a wild card.
Well,
Brian.
Okay. And so we cut to a scene with Tom from Tom Shipwrights, the man who built Roger's ship.
Tom's workers,
and he goes, "It's been ages since I've seen you guys." And then it's a bunch of Roger's crew going like, "Good to see you again, Tom. Hey, Tom." And they're all happy to see him. Roger gives him a little slap dap on the hand. He said, and Roger goes, "Did you build the train of yours?" And he's like, "What? You crazy?" And Tom responds like, "You crazy? I'm still designing it." And then we see a young iceberg, which is Durag, being very, very much curious about these pirates that Tom seems to be associated with. Also, I didn't notice it the first time I saw it, that Buggy's hanging out on Tom's shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
And Shanks is hugging his big round belly. It's all fun.
And I also check out Shanks' fancy sandals.
He's
had those before.
Those are the Marco sandals. Marco also had the high heel sandals.
Yeah, it looks like they're giving Tom a truffle shuffle.
And Tom is getting larger.
God, airplane's the best. And then we see Kokoro, a shot of her. She's like, "All this time, and you people haven't piped down a bit." And cut to a scene of isolated from the rest of the group, surprisingly, a young and dirty Frankie talking to Elder Odin, who goes, "What? You're an Odin?" I'm sorry.
I like the term.
I think that's what you are, sir.
Yeah. I've been drinking.
Me Odin, you Frankie.
So he's
sure it's not the cheese.
He's like, you like eating corpse soups like I do.
Brian, you can try the line again.
That's fine. So he goes, "What? You're an orphan?"
No, I'm a person. My name is Cuddy Flam.
God, Star Wars, the worst. Prequel's still worse. Okay, anyway. Want me to put in a good word for you with our captain? Because I guess he assumes that pirates just pick up orphans now, which again goes back to my theory about all the Straw Hats are orphans, which is interesting.
I was gonna say all pirates are Batman
with dead parents.
All pirates are Batman.
Yeah. And then Frankie continues like, "A pirate? No way. I just got abandoned by pirates." And he's still huffy about it. And I think he's working on one of his early battle Frankies right now. I forgot how many he had.
I'm sure
before Tom
37? Oh, before Tom picked him up. Yeah.
Yeah, because at one point Tom just like, "Hey, you're building scrap on your own. Like, why don't you come work for me?" And I think this is still that moment before he's really associated with Tom's workers. I'm just assuming. And he goes like, "Ha, you're abandoned? Ha, 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 what a laugh, because orphans are hilarious."
It's that Odin charm we all know and love.
It's that Florida man energy.
Yeah.
And then we cut to some vignettes of the Gold Roger Pirates and Oro Jackson on the high seas and singing
Oro Joro.
Oro Joro. Olo Joro.
That's it. That's where I was going with that.
What are you guys? YouTube videos of cats talking? What's going on here?
Go ahead.
So we see this on the high seas, boats singing. They're singing Bink's Brew, Bink Sake, yo ho ho ho, yo ho ho ho, yo ho ho ho, yo ho ho. Oh, that's Itoki singing that part of the song. It's gonna be a nice medley. Is that talk singing that you're doing right now? Never mind. Go ahead. And then we see the crew running away with food in their mouths from a giant mammoth on a volcano island, which I assume
think they're on Little Garden, right?
No, I assume this is the island where Luffy trained.
Maybe.
Oh yeah.
But I do remember the big volcanoes on Little Garden that announced.
Yeah, but they're past that point now. Because they're past water 7.
Also, Momonosuke is riding on Odin's head.
Yeah, that's great. That's the best use of his hair so far. And then we also see Time to Ship out Bink's Brew, and we see Tequila Wolf, the slave bridge that Robin had to work on.
Very good.
Like amazed by this. Yeah.
For hundreds and hundreds of years, they have been building this, right? Wasn't
Still
it like
mysterious.
7 or 8?
Yeah.
Since the Void Century.
Yeah.
It's the new freeway to Hawaii from California.
A friend of the podcast, Kendra, Sniper of My Heart, posited that perhaps the secret road poneglyph is here to kill a wolf.
So I was going to say, oh yeah, so Odin continues there at now they're at Chalbudi. He goes, yes, Fishman Island. I went there too at Waikiki. And then we cut to another shot shortly thereafter. The ship is coded. And he was like, I assume this is Roger talking to him. He's like, well, don't be careless. Got that? It's no less deadly on the second trip as they descend past the Chalbudi mangroves into the depths of the sea.
Yeah. Before we move on, actually, I was going to say that the scene with Frankie, like initially, I was kind of a little bit put off by that. I was like, wait, Frankie met like Odin and Roger and all, like, and he didn't like say anything about this before. Like, that's weird. But then eventually you just sort of cotton on that, like, yeah, but like Frankie, this is like feral Frankie. Like, he's a little scamp. Like, of course he doesn't care who these adults are. Like, he wouldn't remember any of this. Like, after they left, he just would be like, I'm just building my kid.
Like, how many of your parents' friends do you really remember?
Right.
Yeah. He has mange.
He looks like the One Piece version of Bart Simpson with the hair.
The bad boy of Tom's Workers.
But I also did point. I did post that one image from I think it's chapter 507 when after they meet with Rayleigh, and Frankie has that one moment to himself talking about kind of marveling at the Gold Roger pirates and what they used to mean, the legends. He was like, yeah. So Frankie,
I saw you tweeted that, Brian.
Yeah, and I always noticed that like Frankie has this like nostalgia, and I just assume because it's people who Tom lent his labor to, like his dream toward. So it might, because of this, it might have a slightly different connotation, because he might have known that he encountered them at one point, but doesn't really have a strong recollection.
Yeah,
Steve.
All right, so our next page, we have a panel of Roger saying, "Did you hear that?" And everyone's like, "Hear what?" And Roger's like, "That voice." And someone else says, "Well, I didn't hear anything." And Roger responds like, "But you did, right?" That's thank you, Matt.
I get it. It's a pirate.
It's
a pirate saying
that. You just killed Steve.
Guys, Mike. Guys, Rayleigh.
Are we doing Venture Brothers still?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Steve and I are the only guys still doing that. You're right. We're the fan base. Us and our several patrons are the last vestiges of the fan base of that show.
Definitely.
I'm sorry.
When that show is nothing but
Brothers.
When that show is nothing but a specter, then you can say, well, live by the ghost, die by the ghost.
That's our creed. But yeah, Roger's clearly hearing the voices of the Sea Kings, and Odin can Sea Kings, and Odin can hear them too. And these are the same Sea Kings from towards the end of Fishman Island that saved Noah from crashing into it.
They're always the same.
Yeah, they're always the same ones.
And
it's
also
always that ugly one.
These specific panels we've seen before. It was in a short flashback from Fishman Island.
Oh, yeah, you see Roger saying, like, yeah, I gotta find that chapter.
Oh,
go ahead.
I didn't remember that, so thanks for that. But we're at the entrance, and we see a very familiar figure say, it's like, why have you come here, Outlander, or surface dwellers? And everyone on Roger's boat screams. But Roger says, no, wait, look closer. It's me, Roger. Don't you recognize me, Neptune the Knight? And we see it's like pre-King Neptune. We see Neptune the Knight. He says, Roger, oh, yes. And yeah, I see now. So you're going to be the one to do it. And in case you couldn't tell if there was something different about Neptune other than his helmet, he has a mouth. So He has mouth flaps in this flashback.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I forgot that was a thing.
I like that Roger has to tell him to look at his face and not read the giant sail that has his name on it.
Look how big Neptune is. He's like gigantic compared to their ship.
Stephen, everyone knows that mermaids and mermen can't read.
They can't read.
I know a Goldie Roger. I never heard of no Gold Roger though.
Neptune was never that big before.
Neptune's
was never a pretty
popular.
big dude.
Is he? Okay.
He's a big dude.
But Shirahoshi is so much bigger than he is. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah. No, but Neptune is a big dude. That's true. Yeah. Go ahead. Steve.
So like a little time passes, and Roger's like, "Do what? I'm not getting up to anything." And I think this is someone else saying like, "What happened to you, Neptune? You changed.
Like, used to be cool.
Yeah, you used to be cool, but now you're terrified of little prophecies."
Neptune's still cool.
Like, I'm hip. Neptune says like, there is a prophecy that very soon someone will destroy the gates of Fishman Island, and you're all here suddenly. So of course I'm gonna just attack the first thing I see. And we hear a Zadoom in the background that catches Neptune's attention, and he turns, and we hear her saying, "Neptune, it's been destroyed." Yeah, it happened.
Well, his back is turned.
A Sea King or a Neptunian just bit through the gate, and it's like those cute and cuddly Sea Kings. That's impossible. And Odin's like, he was right. But now there's a breach in the outer bubble. I still forget how the freaking infrastructure of
don't try
Island
to think
works.
about that.
It's so confusing. But I believe this Neptune ordering to seal it at once. Emergency repairs. And some time passes, and Neptune just face palms. He says like, it turned into a disaster after all. And someone yells, "Yeah, but we didn't do it."
Yeah, I actually have issue with that. This is totally a Oracle from the Matrix thing. Like if Roger and his crew didn't show up, it wouldn't have distracted Neptune and his soldiers leaving their post. Thus,
oh my god!
They inadvertently caused this disaster.
By the way, for the scene featuring Roger saying, "Who the hell's talking out there?" is the exact line. That's volume 66, page 31.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, there it is. Anyway.
Wait, so if Roger had the steak, then would Neptune have had the salad?
And more, here's going to blow your mind even more. If I never talked about the steak, would you have gotten the salad in the first place?
Damn it.
Why the hell are we bringing up powers into this? What's going on here? What happened?
Matt, you could continue.
Yeah. So Charlie, a 3-year-old Charlie shows up. Charlie, people may remember, is the giant sexy shark lady who awakened some stuff in me when I was reading those chapters.
Arlong's big sister.
Yes. She's just a little prophet girl right now. She's 3 years old, and she says the Neptunians are restless because they're waiting for the mermaid princess to be born, which is yet another, high adventuring on the seas prophecy about how the world's going to change. And Neptune's kind of freaking out about it because he's like, whoa, because everyone's like, oh, you're gonna have a daughter, and she's gonna be able to talk to the the Neptunians, and he's just like, oh, I'm not even married yet. Like he kind of freaks out in a funny way. He only took the throne, what's he say, a few months ago, and then they're just pushing it on him. They're like, she prophesized it, and he's like, well, okay. And then this weird horny guy makes a mistake where he says, "Hey, she was right about the seditious mermaid Otohime and her political protest the other day." So it's kind of
don't mock my caricature.
You know what? Yeah, I can see that.
I'll take that.
Yeah, that's what you should make that your Twitter profile now. And then he points out those aren't good prophecies to be correct about. Basically, like she keeps prophesying bad stuff, and everyone's excited that she's right.
Wait, Brian, what's your fish name? I guess
we
I've
never
stumped
did
up.
fish names, did we?
Well,
No.
he was the minister of Fryan, right?
Oh, well, that's Whole Cake Island. So, but,
Yeah. Okay. All right.
All right, we'll figure
I'll think
that out
about
later.
it.
Sorry about that, Matt.
It's all right. One thing I do like about this chapter is it's like One Piece Endgame. Like they're just going back through like the history of One Piece in a few chapters, and it's been really interesting. And I love it, especially as someone who just powered through it in a year. Then we skip ahead to the Sea Forest, which also this is one chapter, and I feel like it's like the most they've crammed story into a chapter. They keep jumping ahead. There's all these different scenes. I love it a lot. And the prophecies, she's prophesizing so much, it's really like it's like causing unrest in the country, or in the island at least. And Neptune is like getting pretty rightfully concerned about it. And they basically are like, hey, we're not here to worry about whatever's going on your Fishman Island. Like we're here for a reason. So they point out that there's 2 stones there, which is, and he even says like that's quite the windfall. It's like a lot of stones. And they mention Joy Boy. Who does anybody want to catch us up on Joy Boy? I'm not able to do that properly.
It's just a name that was mentioned at the end of Fishman Island. That's pretty much it.
Well, I mean,
he's like very sorry for what he did, and it was sorry for me, a bad little boy.
I don't believe that was the exact. I mean, I could pull up the exact language if anyone remembers. And you will. Volume.
Come on, I just gotta say, it looks like Charlie is like predicting the musical Hairspray in this crystal ball.
I was gonna make that joke.
Oh my God, you broke Alex.
Very good, Ed. You and I are
on the same wavelength.
So they find the poneglyphs. And they're pointing out, they're like, okay, we found these. Now what? Like they're really jumping ahead to like they're on a mission. And they point out that the weapon that can control the Neptunian should be there, which is the weapon that we see way earlier on that Nami has now, right?
No. This is
right. Or they build it based on this, what is that again?
They are referring to the message that was in Skypia about Neptune being able to control Poseidon being able to control the Neptunians, and this is where they're looking for it, and that is what Shirahoshi, the mermaid princess, turns out to be.
Mm-hmm. And then. Then he actually remembers that. He says, well, there was a prophecy that she had a while ago that sent a shiver down my spine. It said that a mermaid who can talk to Neptunians will soon be born. They only come around every few centuries, perhaps. And he realizes the prophecy is going to happen.
I want to point out something real quick, just how cool Neptune looks in his armor. I wonder if like the Fishman was just in a more warlike state, so even their like guards look more aggressive.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a good point.
So I was thinking that this other poneglyph that was at Fishman Island, is this the one Jinbei has with him now? You think?
No, well, because that's a red.
No, it's a red one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the fact that was not at the Sea Forest when we saw the Straw Hats there, would that mean that is technically the 4th currently missing poneglyph?
Yeah.
That's it.
Whoa. Yeah. So the question is, where did it go? Who took it, and where did it go?
Let's look at the suspects that are here right now who have known it's there.
It's always
no suspects.
It's always the one you least suspect.
The government spy.
It was the butterfly. Nobody suspects the butterfly.
Do you want me to go through the Joy Boy stuff at the end? Because I found it. I don't know if
just do it now.
Okay.
It's topical.
So it's in volume 66. For those looking, pages 62 through 64. Neptune and Robin are having a little talk after Neptune had a little too much to drink and burps a lot during this. So just imagine your Rick Sanchez impression here. Asking, so she just goes up to him and asks, who's Joy Boy? Saying that he was apologizing to someone on the seafloor. And Neptune responds, Joy Boy is a person who lived on the surface during the 100-year void century. And so Robin says, so at least 100 years. And he continues that message was meant for the mermaid princess on the island at the time. I'm going to guess, by the way, Neptune knows this because of Odin and Roger here. And Neptune continues, it was an apology for breaking a promise with Fishman Island. The contents of that promise are not clear, but someone will come along to fulfill the promise in Joy Boy's stead, at least according to the royal legend. So we believe in that day and uphold our part of the promise by protecting Noah, the big ship that crashed through, if you remember, through the generations. For it is not until the day the promise comes about that Noah will fulfill its actual promise. And Robin continues that I'm almost done. After everything ended above the island, she had heard that Noah was taken to the forest of the sea by the Sea Kings, and that if Joy Boy was meant to use Noah, could he have the power to control the Sea Kings? But again, Neptune says that is the mermaid princess, and that it is as I thought, meaning that Princess Shirahoshi can do the same thing. It's a latent ability that will come about, and then saying that Shirahoshi is in fact the ancient weapon Poseidon, which of course Caribou overheard.
Boy, Zach, it's like you just read the Silmarillion.
Yeah.
Sorry, that took a while. But that was it.
You know, what were we doing? When I was in college, one of my friends used to always say, God, the Silmarillion is the second most boring book I've ever read, you know, next to the Bible.
Whoa. There are a lot of who begats in both of those. Which
yeah. Well, who was the roommate? Ricky Gervais? Jeez.
I didn't say roommate. Anyways.
Alex.
Here I am. So here we are. Continuing. Roger says, so you're saying your daughter's going to be a weapon that'll destroy the world one day? And Neptune replies, oh, it's just a prophecy, and every power depends on how you use it. And Odin says, who could have guessed that Poseidon would be a mermaid? And here we've got a really cute panel of Roger visiting a 2-year-old Shawi. And he says, hey, Charlie, when is this mermaid princess going to be born? And she says, in 10, this many. And I'd like to point out that Roger's face here looks a lot like Luffy's cheery disposition. And Neptune remarks, 10 years from now, why would you take an interest in this, Roger? I'm disappointed in you. And Rayleigh replies that, well, it's not the weapon that we're after, Neptune. It's the people who called it a weapon, specifically the vast treasure those people left behind somewhere. So there's the point to their journey. Wah ha ha! Feel better now. Don't worry. We're not coming back in the future to kidnap your hairy daughter. And Neptune says, she will not be hairy. I wanted to ask you about this, Stephen.
What's up?
Is this so the hairy daughter? Is this a literal like what?
Yeah. It's so like Moja Moja is sort of like it's like a description of like hair that is. Yeah. It's like you know, kind of like Neptune's let's say natural hair, a lot of buoyancy to it. It's kind of going everywhere, and so that's sort of like he's basically referring to that, which is not nearly as impressive as it will be in the future, but you can already see what Neptune's like.
No, it's funny. Sorry.
Isn't this also like a callback to Fishman Island when the Straw Hats were being brought to the Ryugu Palace, and when they mentioned the princess, they all thought, she just looked like King Neptune.
Yeah. Oh man,
you know it's also kind of ironic because the fact that you can talk about a hairy situation, and if his daughter's literally going to like potentially destroy the world, it's a pretty hairy situation it can cause.
No, that's what I call a sticky situation.
My version's better.
Oh yeah. By the way, Brian, your fishman name is Brian New Tuna. Or Brian Neptune, but I like New Tuna better because it sounds bad.
Sounds like a Star Wars name.
Yeah, it's true.
Bib Fortuna.
I like that better, actually. They want a wanga. Also, Rayleigh looks like he's wearing Mihawk's cloak due to that inner lining. Could just be
I think
that's.
I think it's the same design that's been used since Chapter 0.
It is, but like within this context, it does look a lot like what Mihawk traditionally wears. I've never put that connection together.
Yeah, probably just a fun.
It's H&M.
Yeah.
Is Rayleigh a former goth?
Yeah. They all bought their clothes at Uniqlo anyway.
Hey, Rayleigh is Mihawk's father. They wear the same
Stop that now.
So as we're treated to a fun adventure montage of Bink Sake. I'm assuming the entire crew is singing Bink Sake or Bink's Brew rather, as Roger and crew sail to parts that we've seen before and maybe places that we've never seen before. I recall seeing those loopy waves before when they get to the New World. There's the Thunder Island that Urouge visits at
Raishin, right?
Yeah. I think that was one of the options when they got the triple log pose.
And they didn't take any of them, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that how that
works?
worked?
You can see Odin's hair getting shocked and Buggy's nose getting shocked.
And Odin is a skeleton dancing there.
As we know, Buggy's nose and Odin's hair are bone. Yeah, part of their.
And also, of course, the static electricity is affecting Cat Viper there in the front. Alex, I don't think we've seen those specific waves. I think it's kind of similar to what maybe.
No, Alex, right. I think
Alex is right.
It's after they leave Punk Hazard, they run across these waves.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's how.
So then they find another poneglyph at what looks like a jungle island. I'm assuming that giant person is with them. It's part of their crew, right?
Someone thought that might be
Seagull.
Elbaf, but
no, that's
it's got a name.
Seagull.
Oh,
Seagull, right?
Does everyone have a name?
And then yes,
That's how it works, Zach.
the data books are there for a reason. And here's a fun fan servicey fan servicey bit. Gets to see some butts or some near butts. And they're, I guess they're on a little hot.
Look at the size of those shoulder blades.
Oh, baby. I'm going to nut. Just kidding. Don't worry. And then we finally get to Wano. In the seas near Wano, Toki's fallen ill. Toki? Yeah, that's right. Remember, she's on the ship too. Toki's original destination was the land of Wano, as Crocus says. With it so close at hand, the exhaustion of her long journey has finally caught up to her. She ought to get off here, basically. And we see her sick in bed, surrounded by her kids, Rayleigh and Odin, and I believe that's that Buggy. No, it's who cares? It's somebody. Before we move on, I do want to go back to the hot springs panel and point out some peeps there. There's that guy with the pointy hair again.
Yeah, he's also in the panel.
I think he kind of looks like Bullet. I've seen. Oh yeah, he's there too. Yeah, and I think like I don't know if you guys talked about this on an earlier episode of the podcast or not. But I think I looked at a photo of him, or not a photo. I when you first see him, which is I think in the last chapter, the chapter before that, he bears some sort of resemblance to Bullet, but that's just conjecture.
Also, kids, do not get absolutely hammered while you are bathing in a hot spring.
Oh yeah.
God, yeah. Okay, yeah, I've done that. I've done that, and it was the worst time I've ever had drinking. I'll just
What's the whole deal with again? Because alcohol thins out your blood, and then
it thins your blood out,
and you're really dehydrated,
get lightheaded, and then you.
Usher, King of the Pirates. Go ahead.
On the next page, they are what appears to be disembarking at Wano, and Cat Viper and Dogstorm are warning him warning Oden that Kinemon and the others don't know about Lady Toki, since of course they found her while on Oden's adventure. But so they're going to stay. They're going to be sort of like the in-betweens. They're going to help everyone get to know her and help stay at her side. And Oden's like, what are you talking about? I'm staying here too, of course. But Toki herself insists. She's like, no, that's not the man I married. If you stop now, then I'm getting a divorce. And which is a funny choice of words at this point. But yeah, she's clearly very sick. And then we are on Wano proper, where the Akazaya 9 are greeting Oden, and they're very eager to deliver a report about what's going on in the country, because he left Kuri in their hands, and now not just Kuri, in fact, all of Wano is wait. They don't get to explain what's going on because Toki doesn't want them to force to tempt him to stay. They're saying just stop there. If you truly care for him, then I beg of you, let him go. And Oden is delivering. He can't face them. He has to keep his back to them. I will be leaving again for quite some time, much to their consternation. And there's a great panel here of Oden. He's all shadowed out with the heavy emotions over him, and you can see for the first time the smoking factories in the background as he writes in his journal. Even as I turned my back on Wano, I knew that some ominous change was afoot. I could sense that if I turned back, I would never again go to sea. And his vassals are yelling at him as he leaves, "You scoundrel!" And back on the ship, even Roger is like, "You scoundrel," and it's great face. I love that face. And Oden is incensed. He's like, "Oh, all right, you want to play that way? You want to read these on your own? I'll stay here." And yeah, so he says, "I took a quick copy of the poneglyph, then went back to the ship. It was my first return home in 4 years, and it lasted merely hours."
Could really see the egg on this one in this panel.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. It's still there.
Yeah, and we never find out.
Why? Okay, well,
yeah.
Never going to learn about that egg.
Yeah. And then some time passes, and there's Roger. He's got a little Viva card, and he says it seems like the only way to reach Zoe is with this Viva card. And now I can see why, because it's not even an island, as the familiar silhouette of the giant elephant comes into view. And meanwhile, it's like every panel is like a new scene. There's Shanks is asking Oden, "Is something the matter? You don't seem very well." He's like, "Oh, it's nothing, just a strange feeling." And now we are up in the Mokomo Dukedom, where everyone is excited to see who has arrived. I heard it's pirates. I heard it's the Kozuki clan. It turns out it's both.
Bad.
So we get the former ruler of the Mokomo Dukedom, Duke Genghis Khan. It's great.
Stephen, this is the greatest work you've ever done.
Thank you.
I think we could really stop. We could stop everything here. There's no need to go on.
Yeah, we found the One Piece.
Yeah.
So, Duke Genghis Khan has a letter from Dogstorm and Catviper, and he's in tears. He's so happy. He says, "So those incorrigible problem children are still alive. Oh, we had quite the uproar after they vanished." And so I guess on that letter they decide to let them in, and they garchu all the visitors, and yeah, everyone's getting glumped, and they have no idea what's going on.
Ed, yep. Two things here. First of all, for the Duke here, one of the reasons why he's a sheep in particular is that the name Genghis Khan is not only like the figure, but it is also refers to a mutton dish in Japan. I'm not quite sure why, but so that's where I think that's the inference that he was drawing. Although obviously, like, the name is the name. That was Hitsugi Sukan in Japanese, which is just basically taking the word for sheep and kind of smashing it into the name. Also, this guy here, the tiger with the shirt who says track on the back, So tiger is tora. So it's like toraku, track. So
Okay.
that's what that's for.
That makes sense. But Odin is not having fun. He feels unnerved here. A nameless member of the crew asks him if he is all right. It's not like Odin to be so nervous. And Roger's feeling the same way. It feels like something huge is watching us. But no time for that. Roger is very happy. It's the final road poneglyph. And under the Kozuki crest. So that, Odin, he takes the minks as brothers to the Kozuki. So now we get baby Pedro. Cute. My God. Anyway.
You do a baby Antonio Banderas, Ed?
Please, mister, you got to take me along.
Oh, Jesus.
Continue.
Yeah. Pedro, you said your name was. Listen, kid, you're on the waiting list. See, everyone gets their turn, their time to shine. My turn. And it comes around. You can help us?
No, that's
Okay, I will. I'll come to your aid. And so back to the log. He says, we had found several real poneglyphs and the 4 road poneglyphs. So, as Zoe walks off in the distance.
And then Roger threw a sweaty jersey over Pedro's head. Catch.
What? Well, I almost thought Pedro's mother was going to come in here, and little Pedro was just going to ask, why does Roger have to get on that ship? And his mother said, because he's a pirate.
I want to see Daddy sail.
Steve, you're the only guy who can find any time to reference that episode.
It's so good.
You're like, I'm going to make it happen. This is going to be the next monorail. Everyone's going to talk about how Marge's dad was
All right, January 6th, 2020. I have not made my Marge's Fear of Flying reference yet. Let's do it.
I mean,
there you
take
go.
me with you. It
I'm
works in so many contexts.
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't go, take me with you.
Oh, that's easy.
This is what a giant elephant looks like, honey.
Gold Roger was a stewardess.
Little Marge should have gotten a spinoff. Little Marge is great.
Little Marge is amazing. Yes.
Sheldon could go get bent.
Young Marge.
Young Marge should have been on Gold Roger's crew. Alex, go.
That's me. Yeah. In a port town. You're right, Captain. Click. I guess the door has been locked. Right before I guess Shanks can come on in, and Roger comes on in looking a little weary and asks, "Do we know the place?" And the rest of the crew with big old smirks says, "Yeah, we figured it out. When do we sail?" And he goes, "Right now." I want to point out the guy on the left in that panel has he's basically Magnum PI.
Oh yeah.
They have a Viking guy, but also, why did they lock Shanks out?
No.
He's just a cabin boy, right?
That's Roger's cabin. He's coming out of his cabin.
Door. Yeah, Roger's in there because this is the revelation that Goldie Roger had an eating disorder.
Ah.
That's what he's doing in there.
Thanks.
That's what he was wasting away.
That's why I got to ask the question.
Hold on.
Roger, we just ate. How are you hacking it up again? Scurvy. Don't ask.
It's a devil fruit power. So the guy with the Viking helmet, is that Burndy World, or was he? I didn't watch 3D2Y. Is he supposed to be a former member of Roger's crew, or?
No, I don't think
Oh,
he
man,
is.
I don't remember him at all.
That is an extremely forgettable.
Yeah,
special.
he was someone who was a rival to everyone of that era, similar to Shiki, but he wasn't on Roger's
I think
crew.
this is just a Viking guy. We know that Oda loves Vikings and that culture, so.
True.
Yeah, we've seen this character a few times since meeting Roger's crew. He's been in the background.
And yeah. So there's a Scopper, and so Scopper Gaban, by the way, in this chapter, every time I look at him, he looks a lot more like Vito. And I wonder if there was a Story of Everest type thing where he got his hands run over by by a cart.
My God, he does have large hands.
And then he just becomes Vito, and turns out Vito is actually former member of Rogers. Yes, and old as shit. So we've got some narration from Odin's journal for the rest of these 2 pages. Whether out of good fortune or bad, the apprentice deckhand Buggy Jito caught a sudden fever and had to forego the voyage to the final island. And then we see through the porthole, Buggy is hacking up smoke, or possibly on fire.
I think he's got a
fever.
Yeah. It's a bad fever.
Right. The only solution?
More cowbell.
No, don't you dare.
Thank you.
I was going to say antibiotics and a good night's rest. But,
well, no, I mean, he's giving him the X. Bring out the medics.
I love that. I love that Clover's going, no.
Yeah. What I also love about this porthole panel is like you got the guy who's
Crocus.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. But also there's a Roger has a hillbilly on his team. You have the guy with the trucker hat.
No, I think it's
isn't that Android 13?
You red ribbon redneck.
I do believe it's it's this guy's in the foreground on the Hot Springs panel. He looks like a comic book. He looks like an indie comic book character from the 1970s.
It's like an R. Crumb character.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's got and he walks like the keep on trucking guy.
Yeah, he keeps on.
Yeah. I spin off about this guy, please. So Crocus is giving him the doctor stop as Buggy's fever is pretty tremendous. The journal continues. Red Taro chose to stay behind and care for him. Are they best friends or mortal enemies? And Shanks says, if we're going to go there, we'll take our own ship someday. Oh. And you hear, aye, in the background. I suppose that's Buggy still clamoring.
What are they doing to him?
Maybe maybe just Crocus was doing Namu's like finishing technique from Dragon Ball, the 21st Tenkaichi Budokai.
That is an extremely specific reference.
Maybe it's that thing, Steve.
Oda of all people.
Steve's 2 favorite things: the Budokai Tenkai, whatever he just said, and the episode of The Simpsons where Marge's dad was a flight attendant. The only 2 things you ever, and the Venture Brothers episode where they're pirates.
I mean,
he's not wrong.
He isn't. No.
Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. You got all the. It's like this is Steve Yorko bingo tonight.
Oh my God, we have to make
Steve
that board.
Bingo is the episode title for tonight.
Is there a wrestling reference yet? Somebody talk about wrestling?
Oh yeah, wrestling is one too. No, I don't know if it has to be the title, but someone definitely needs to make a Steve Yorko bingo board. And see on a normal episode of either of our shows how many you hit. Where the hell were we, Alex?
So Shanks mentions that if we're going to go there, we'll take our own ship someday. And some time passes, of course, and we see newspapers flying throughout the world.
As they do.
Roger's pirate crew has finally done it. Roger's completed a full circumnavigation of the globe. He's the first ever. At last, someone has conquered this sea. He's king of this sea. King of the pirates.
Here's your crown, your majesty.
She never cooks, is she? God. All right. And we see a newspaper spin towards the screen, and it ends in a doom with Roger's face. Yep. Right. And on that And on that day, we learned the entire truth of the world. What the 100-year void is, what the people of the D are, what the ancient weapons are. In the past, Wano was open to the world, and in the face of that vast treasure, which was very real indeed, we never heard from Shanks again. He joined Vietnam, and Marcus has 13 kids, and he's living very happy with his wife.
And that boy that nobody liked grew up to be Buggy the Pirate.
All in all, it was the greatest summer of my life.
And now you know the rest of the story.
God, what if there was just a whole arc that was just the Vietnam War? Then all the characters went to Nam.
Yeah, that's Dressrosa.
American history?
That's how Shanks really loses his arm.
No, that's MASH.
I think you guys are just describing an extremely dark take on One Piece that would be very unsuccessful.
Wait, whoever is reading, Zach, I think you should probably pick up this with the very last line.
I'll pick it up from here. And in the face of that vast treasure, which was very real indeed, Roger just laughed, and we have almost the 2/3 of the page of a 2-page spread here just devoted to that laugh. And it rounds off here. And so did we all. We laughed until tears sprang to our eyes. And that's the end of his log here, as we see Roger's entire crew laughing at something joyously, it seems. Which works because Roger says here, "Oh, Joy Boy, I wish I'd been born in your time. This is quite a treasure you've left behind, a tale full of laughs. Say, that gives me an idea. We're the first people to reach this final island in 800 years, so why don't we give it a name? Something original, something like Laugh
How about
Tale.
Roger's Laughing Place?
All right, everyone go around the table.
Okay, name the island, everyone.
Say your joke title.
Poochie, right? It's Poochie? You guys, something like Poochie.
Something like
I
Poochie,
think
but
this is
better.
confirmation that the One Piece is just a really good Far Side strip. It's like one of the better ones. Maybe not the best one.
It's the cat FUD one with the dog and the washing machine.
No. It's how the dinosaurs really went extinct.
It's cow tools, you guys.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I think we should call it Joy Boy's Chuckle Hut.
I like it.
John Lovitz is going to be there Thursday through Saturday.
Hello.
Oh my God! What if they're just watching John Lovitz do stand-up?
Oh, that'd be so good.
Okay, fine. If they were watching one comedian do stand-up, which would it be?
Carrot Top.
This was a long time ago, so Louis C.K. I think it was.
Oh,
It's before we knew.
Oh, so
flashback.
when Luffy shows up there and it's still Louis C.K., he'll be like, "Oh, this sucks." What the
He's
fuck?
like, "Oh, he's so disappointed."
They banished me to this island.
You're part of that worst generation. You're the worst generation because you get offended by everything.
The final island is where they send all the canceled comedians.
That is the one.
They live
you can
now.
go and you can still enjoy them without anyone knowing. That's the true One Piece.
Just the fucking broken comedy joint.
Yep.
Okay.
Zach, have you actually read the actual caption? Have you given it a good read?
So yeah, they say, why don't we give it a name? We'll call it Laugh Tale. I'll say it again. Why not? And this is one of those rare panels where it's just black and a sound effect behind that.
Not since Gear 4.
Yeah, Gear 4.
No, we're calling it Laugh Tale because if you call it, Laugh Tale, you're racist.
Yep.
Cut that.
No, I'm not cutting that.
We don't edit this podcast.
Yeah, that doesn't get edited. My favorite Steve jokes are the ones that no one reacts to. Anyway, let's go around. Thoughts on this chapter. Let's start with let's go in order. Brian.
Oh, yikes. Okay. So, chapter's amazing. What a after like when I was talking to other friends about this chapter today, it was like we all started like immediately saying like, hey man, it's been like, how long have we been reading this series? And the one story that everyone's always had in their mind is like, what was it like to sail with Roger? We finally get that confirmation on Roger's adventure. it's a lot of it's a lot of story, and it feels long, but it's also a 19-page chapter, which we haven't had in a while, so I think that contributed to it. And I think I like what Matt said, and was it's the in-game chapter where it's just all your recent greatest hits. Like, hey, you remember the scene from that movie? You remember the scene from that other film? All strung together, and really like crystallizing what the larger connections of the One Piece world is, and also I like it because it's you know how you're watching like a long going series, and before the start of a new episode, it's like previously on Game of Thrones, and they kind of show you clips from previous episodes you're going to need to know for this upcoming episode. So it kind of like clues you into the important bits in case you've forgotten. That's what this chapter is. This chapter is telling you all the things that you may have forgotten, but you're going to need to know in probably the next 5 to 10 years. And I also just want to say real quick, that last shot of Roger laughing, just like, I don't know, it just gave me chills. It's interesting because like we all suspect like the ancient history is definitely connected to this, the missing history. And it feels like some tragedy because of like the world government being like super authoritarian and somewhat oppressive. And that's probably, very oppressive. But like we figure there's some tragedy behind that. So it's going to be something that's going to either make you outraged or mad. But if it is attached to this, the reaction is like just laughter. It's like some big joke in the end. And like that's a very fascinating reaction I wasn't quite expecting, but it feels perfectly appropriate for this series. So yeah, it's great. Great chapter.
Steve.
Great chapter. No, but really, we got very lucky to cap off 2019 with an amazing chapter, and then we get like an incredible one at the beginning of 2020. This, I don't know. Maybe I'm bad at predictions, but I was not seeing the Kozuki Odin flashback go in this direction. I thought this was a flashback we wouldn't get till closer to the end of the series, but I kind of like how this is. It's taken an unexpected turn, and now we're getting filled in on Roger and his crew and his voyage. But I don't feel too, because a part of me was thinking like, oh man, now we're finding out stuff about Roger. I kind of thought maybe we should like wait a little bit later, but I think a lot of the stuff we're seeing so far is stuff we've already known or seen little bits of, like how Zach pointed out, like, oh yeah, like Roger, we saw that panel where Roger was hearing the voices of the Sea Kings. So there's probably still a lot more of Roger's story to tell in more flashbacks down the line. But I don't know, maybe that's just me coming up with a complaint for the sake of criticizing something.
No,
but
I agree with you, Steve. There's probably going to be more we need to know.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know how he started his adventure, for example.
Exactly. Yeah, and this is stuff we all, like, we know obviously he knows Tom. Like, obviously he's been to Fishman Island and Skypiea. But it's really cool to finally see this stuff. And we've all been following this series for a very long time, and Roger's just been, he's just been a legend. He's just been hell. Like, when was like the first time we even saw these, like, this dude's like eyes? Like, was that like the 500? Like,
it was like when Rayleigh's talking.
When Rayleigh's talking about him, yeah. Like, we went 500 chapters without seeing what this dude's pupils looked like. That's how like crazy this manga is. But it's fun, and like just. It's something reiterating what Matt said earlier. It's just finally seeing this legend have like a personality and quirks is just very entertaining. It's nice to finally see him as a person and not just like, as a legend. I don't want to steal too much conversation because I'm pretty sure, a lot of people want to say some things, but this has just been great. And something I said on Twitter this morning after reading this chapter is that last page is an iconic One Piece 2-page spread, and it just came out today. Like, that is like that's gonna stay in my mind for a long time when I think of this series. So awesome chapter, awesome flashback.
Matt.
Yeah, all the stuff that you guys have been saying. one thing that does stick out. I mean, I can't believe that the first time I got to be on the show was this chapter. That's really exciting because it's so great. But one thing that I'm really feeling from this whole arc with Odin and everything is like this feels like the start of the wrap up. You know what I mean? And there was there was news recently about Oda saying like, yeah, I see the end in sight. And this really feels like him like pointing to the bleachers like, there it is, you know, we're like, I'm answering these mysteries that I never really answered before. They have somebody look at look at the end of the comic basically. So like, it's exciting and it's kind of sad. And it's also really nice to like spend all this time catching up on this 1,000 chapter comic and then like have this be the one that I hit at the end of my like big read is the one that's like, all right, I feel like the comic was telling me like it's glad that I'm here and we're gonna finish this out.
Yeah, I can't imagine reading, even like if I restarted the series just and reading through everything again and getting to this chapter. Alex, thoughts?
Yeah, what a chapter. I think like I speak for a lot of people when I say that seeing a One Piece spinoff with like the Adventures of Roger would be like awesome. But I feel like if that never does happen, this was pretty freaking great. In regards to you know, this flashback not being over, I you know, or rather what Steve was saying that you know, didn't expect to see Odin's flashback going this particular route. You know, we still need that emotional payoff because, I mean, he turns his back on his country in turmoil. Like you can see that his vassals are wearing tattered robes, and like shit has already hit the fan. It makes you wonder, like, what is going to be his, you know, what's the emotional payoff going to be, I wonder, because a One Piece flashback generally tends to have those, but regardless, I would say that this is probably one of the more fun flashbacks just because there's so much fucking adventure in it. It's the reason why people say Skypiea is one of the best One Piece arcs, because it's just pure unmitigated adventure, and this flashback is just not just with Roger, but you know, with Whitebeard and getting to see Shanks and Buggy cut their teeth a little bit as pirates, and going back to all of these places that we've seen before, but with different context. It's such a fun thing. I guess that's what I really wanted to say is I think this chapter is fun as hell, and that final picture of Roger there is pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I'd say on top of that, like the huge adventure of it, but also like it's still got that little twinge of One Piece melancholy, like seeing that Roger is sick and is like putting his life into overdrive. Like what gives him the drive to truly become the king of the pirates is like, I need to fucking do this right now. Like there's a reason. And that is, you know, very sad, but also very exciting as a storytelling thing.
He says that word for word.
A design.
Like, we're going right now.
Yeah, like I don't have much time left. I need to like to have the comic start out 20 years ago with his execution, and then to learn 2 decades later like he was going to die anyway, and he lived his life to the fullest and changed the world forever is amazing.
Yeah. That's One Piece in a nutshell. A design thing that I want to point out that I don't think I've ever noticed until just now, or maybe it just wasn't revealed, but man, Roger's got like the fucking like feather and like the feather in his cap, and I don't know, like he's such a.
I was
like,
just looking at the same thing.
He didn't used to draw him that way initially. Like I reread the volume where the chapter where he's talking to Whitebeard during the war, and he only has like a more basic tricorder. He doesn't have this like this extra fancy
new hat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do love his design, and boy, I think it's kind of neat that Joy Boy is basically a well, I think this is confirmation that Joy Boy left behind the One Piece, right?
He's like,
and he's also kind of
like the original
Roger.
hero.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's funny that
the original, he's probably a D. He's probably like
who knows?
Roger and Luffy are so alike, like the way that they act, the way they, the way they have their adventure. That like you'd almost have to. He's the prior generation of that. He's the ancestor.
Was it confirmed or not that the hat that's in Mary Joa is that Joy Boy's hat or no, or is that just speculation?
That is speculation. Although this actually leads, I guess, some. I mean, Joy Boy has been kind of theory bait, for lack of a better term, I think, for a while. So I was kind of surprised to see it pay off there at the end in some way. That
Joy Boy's like the most critical person in the narrative right now.
He's he's the Luffy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
totally.
I mean, him and Emu or her, who the hell knows with the genders and this, but it's very interesting. Steven.
Gosh, let's see. I actually, as you guys were talking about the final scene of like Roger's sort of mindset and the, kind of like at the end of your life finding this stunning thing that just makes you laugh. It almost reminded me, it's not necessarily the same like emotional situation, but for some reason it popped into my head. There's like a scene in the movie Man on the Moon, which is Jim Carrey playing Andy Kaufman, the comedian. And there's a scene where he's sick with cancer and he's like desperate. He's taking all these desperate measures, and he like goes to, I want to say it's like Thailand or something like that, because there's like a miracle doctor who just reaches into your body and like takes out the cancer or something like that. And he finally gets down on like the bed, and then he sees that like the guy basically just has like a blob of red like gunk in his hand, and he's like going rrr, 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 with his fingers, and then like ta-da, it's like a magic trick. I pulled the thing out, and he just like laughs. He just like laughs and laughs and laughs at like the sort of the cosmic joke of it all. And I do feel like there's some element of that in the way that he reacts, like being at the end of his life and then kind of like seeing the truth of everything is very cathartic in a kind of enigmatic way. But as far as the chapter itself, I guess I'll just talk about like, translation related issues. It was definitely not lost. I was thinking very kind of wryly to myself that like being this sort of as we've been saying, a One Piece end game, like going back through all of these scenes, it's almost like a greatest hits of like all of these different names. But I was just thinking to myself like, oh man, like the Gon 4 and the Neptune, all we need is like a Rogue Town and an Eneru the Kami, and people are just going to really lose their shit when they see the the official versions of all these names.
Yeah, I appreciate Gonfall being a god again.
Yeah, I was like,
all you're missing, Steven, was a little bit of pirate talk.
I'll try. I'll make it up next time.
And a reference to that classic Simpsons episode where Marge's dad is a flight attendant. That's all you were missing.
Yeah.
You hear the man, Steven.
Yeah, so that was I was definitely like thinking of oh boy, I mean, people are gonna like this one, but it really was fun to go back and see all this stuff, and it was very interesting to me because let's talk about the Laugh Tale reveal. Obviously, this is not news because this the Laugh Tale versus Raftel thing was basically busted out into the open at the Stampede airings, and so that was kind of no longer a secret. And to be honest, I kind of wish that had not happened in Stampede. I wish that the timing had been reversed somehow. I mean, maybe that wouldn't have made Stampede work as a movie, but I think like seeing this the way that like I know some readers were not aware of this, like they had not seen Stampede, they didn't know what it was. And so like, I kind of wish that I had that experience instead, because I think it is a really fascinating reveal. And in some senses, like it was the perfect way for Oda to say this, but it's not like I'm not necessarily out of the woods, so to speak, as far as the translation goes. So from the Japanese side, the name is the same. Like it is literally, it's just the katakana is Rafuteru. And it it was that before and it is that now. What Oda did is he wrote in English in that last bubble with Laugh Tale. He wrote the katakana rafuteru, which is the thing that everybody knows already, and then he wrote the English word Laugh Tale above it. And then obviously, like the way that I contextualized in the panels previous, like Roger is, explaining that, oh yeah, this is it's a tale full of laughs. It's a very silly story. It's a preposterous story. And so that helps clue the Japanese reader in, like, if they have just kind of an elementary education in English, they would kind of know that already, but it just helps to set you up to understand that is the context that is being revealed. The tricky part with the English is that, of course, like, you can't do it that way. It has to be spelled differently. And so in that sense, like, Oda playing his hand like this was perfect for me, because that was kind of like me and Alexi were like wondering after the Stampede thing. We were like, so what do we do now with this name? And all I could think was like, well, it really depends on what the context is the next time we see it appear in the manga. And this is the perfect context, because it's literally Oda explaining what Laugh Tale means. And therefore, like, I don't have to explain that it is, what it means. Why is he calling it Laugh Tale instead of Raft Tale? But the problem is that because it's a revelation to the reader, like, Oda kind of, he snuck it through. Like, it's not supposed to be a name that you would be able to recognize that it was this, 2-word English phrase. Like, it's not even like even to take the English words Laugh Tale and transcribe them into Japanese, it wouldn't even be rafuteru. It would be like rafteru. It would be elongated. So he like tweaked it so that you couldn't really tell. But once you know it, then it's like, oh, now I see the connection. And so, I know there's some people that were wondering, like, okay, well, then should we go back and change everything to Laugh Tale? And I kind of feel like that would be against the spirit of like what this scene is, because it would immediately give you, the English reader, a certain kind of context. It's not a nonsense word if they're talking about the last island Laugh Tale, like from the start of the story. And so this kind of the challenge now is like, do we have to gauge, like, anytime a character from this point onward, anytime a character says or refers to rafuteru, like, okay, is this a person who would know like what Roger was going on about? Is this a member of his crew or someone who he would have talked this about, or is it like some random person, a crowd in a civilian in a crowd scene or something? Like, it's hard to say. And therefore, that's kind of like the big question now is like, okay, do we try to differentiate between these two understandings of what this name is? Like, do other people still call it Raft Tale, but only those who have unlocked the meaning call it Laugh Tale? And that's something that exists only on the English side, or, on other translated languages who have to kind of figure out a way around this. And so that's like the thing where I'm like, okay, boy, well, step one is we passed that stage, but now, we have, that still raises other questions.
Stephen, is that,
yeah,
forgive me if this is a stupid question, but is that something you could like bring directly to the editors, like directly to, Shueisha? Yeah.
Not really, because it's like, it's sort of an English problem, if you know what I mean. Like, it's not a problem on the Japanese side, because it's like he can still call it the exact same thing. The only thing that has changed is the reader's understanding of it. But
I mean, yeah, that's the only reason I ask, because then it becomes almost like a story element, I guess, as to whether or not there even is like a secret. I guess you're right. It's an English translation thing, because either way, it would be the same in Japanese. But it's kind of interesting that there could be kind of this double meaning. And I mean, you're kind of right. Us as readers always thought it was Raftel. So why wouldn't the normal person think that, in the One Piece world?
Right. And like, even, in the past, I've even said on this podcast, among other places, like, yeah, well, it could be, I mean, he could literally say, because we don't know that it is actually canonically spelled Raftel. Same thing with like, the Elbaf thing. We don't know if there's, some wordplay or if there's some similar type reveal or if that was just a name that Oda picked out. It's only in Japanese. It doesn't have a clear thing. And I said, like, yeah, he could literally say like, oh, it's supposed to be laughter, like the word laughter, which turns out not that far off. But even then, it wasn't like a 1-to-1. It wasn't the exact katakana that you would use that phonetically, transcribes that word. And so that's why it was like, well, that would be interesting, but it's not what you would, it wouldn't be your first choice for how to translate that.
Some of us have been around long enough with the series to remember when a lot of the big fan speculation that Raftel was literally like an English way of saying like last tale. And a lot of other things. I remember like that. It's spelled backwards, like Fable, Elbaf, all that stuff.
Oh yeah, Fable and Elbaf.
But it's,
I remember. Yeah.
Right. And that like all that stuff is like pure speculation. There's no confirmation. And sometimes Japanese works in completely different ways. It depends on if he's trying to hide something or if he wants to. And in this case, he kind of pulled it off because no one guessed. I mean, I don't know if you would guess it, like what is to an English speaker, what does laugh tail mean? It's not. It's kind of a nonsense. Right?
Yeah, and even given what we know now, what have they really guessed? Like, even if they said, "Oh, it means laugh tail," we still don't know what the hell they were laughing at.
About,
or about.
Stephen, do you think that the translation of this chapter would have been different if we didn't see the laugh tail log pose in Stampede, or if that wasn't a factor?
No, because he wrote it in English in the last panel.
Oh, shit.
Yes, he wrote Laughtale. That's what I was saying at the start.
Yeah, I see. I guess I missed that. Okay.
So if you got the actual print version, we'd be able to read that.
Wow. Yeah. Wow.
Someone got the print version. I think they were even saying in Japan, I remember they were like, this is an issue you want to buy.
Pick it up this week.
Yeah, I should probably do that too. Yeah. This is it's pretty epic. I mean, Stephen, is there anything else about the chapter and like personal feelings about it? I mean, I do appreciate the context too, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was a really exciting, a really thrilling chapter. I think he did a really great job, and I agree with everybody that like I just love this last spread because he so rarely does he uses these enlarged panels in double page spreads to do really impressive and dynamic scenes, but he almost never does it with a close up on a character. It's like literally the only other ones I can think of are like Luffy crying before his flashback and the Eneru face. Yeah, like literally
and Sabo when he met Sabo again.
Yeah, but like joke. Yeah, like
joke
comedic / like it's almost it's almost like Oda was holding himself back to do something like this for a moment of this caliber, which is really impressive, and I think it really paid off because it's just it's an unforgettable image for as simple as it is. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I still have not seen the next chapter, so I'm as lost as everyone else as to
what finally
we'll see next. I'm sure the one thing that every time we get a chapter that's like this, where we're like, man, the ending is in sight. Like I can see where we're heading now. It feels like it's all rushing downhill towards the climax. And then it turns out that like the next 30 chapters are like, all right, now we got to dick around and find the switch that will, take down the drawbridge so we can run across and beat the first guy and stuff like that.
Yeah, the coordinates of as I say, the coordinates of Laugh Tail are written on a dagger, and when you take this like little thing out of the dagger, it creates half of a circle, and then you have to run that circle up to a man-made object.
How it could have been there.
Yeah, exactly.
Giant 100-foot tidal waves that are smashing it to pieces. So of course it's still perfectly intact so that you can read it.
Palpatine's behind it all.
Ed, thoughts?
I don't know. I just love watching Roger adventure all over the ocean, and he's so much like Luffy. Just the way that he acts, it's you see the style, like this is how the Pirate King behaves. Like it's natural that Luffy would be that guy. But I just love seeing all these like characters, like Roger having this adventure, going to see all these places, and like Steve was saying, I think putting them all in new context. I do continue to be like, Toki doesn't get to do much here. She's like, she's standing up for her man and everything, but she doesn't get to really do anything else, which is kind of disappointing. But yeah, otherwise, like the story about like it's so weird how the flashback about Odin became more about Roger, even though it's Odin's log that's like.
I was going to say,
yeah. Like, man, this Odin flashback became a Roger flashback pretty quick.
The Fox Network. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, and it's so weird about Shanks. Like, Oda is like very specifically choosing to keep them off of that last island, so it really sort of preserves, I guess, Rayleigh as the one person. Well, I guess Crocus too, who knows what's at. Yeah. And who knows what's there? And
that's a big reveal, by the way, because we all just assume Shanks had information about the One Piece.
But I mean, if he's a government spy, he might know anyway.
Right, this is true.
Anyway, this is a really good chapter, and I really enjoyed it. Zach, what do you think?
Yeah, thanks, Ed. I'll make it quick because we've been talking for like an hour and a half about this chapter. It is kind of crazy how this story about Odin just turned completely into a story by Roger. It's what Ed said. I forgot at times.
But like someone else was saying before, though, like this is only the parts of Roger's life that Odin was there for.
Exactly.
It's a very brief period of time.
Yeah, I mean, it's less than a year, I think. We find out he's sick, and he only knew he was sick, I think, for the last year of his journey. So it is kind of cool how we see a greatest hits kind of thing. Someone on Twitter, and I forget who, pointed out how it was really cool that the last road poneglyph that Roger found was the first one that Luffy found, and kind of vice versa, I guess. Yeah, there are some really interesting little tidbits here. I think we'll see stuff with Toki probably a little later, is my hope. It is kind of odd how that happens. Odin is kind of a dick, and he kind of will get his comeuppance, I assume. Like, he's not a villain, but he has done a lot of things that are extremely selfish, and to be fair... Yeah, and to be fair, as a reader, I wanted to see where he went. I wanted him to follow Roger, obviously, so we could see what happens next. But he's kind of a selfish dick about it all. And that's not to say that Odin is not a fun Davy Crockett adventurer, but he does treat all of those who look up with him kind of shittily, for lack of a better adjective.
Not everybody in One Piece needs to be a good person.
No, I'm not saying that either.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. I don't think that makes him a bad character. I think he is a really interesting character, and I think the fact that he has acted that way to Kinemon and crew and to his wife and kids, let's be frank, is going to be interesting, when that all resolves.
A consistent thing with like One Piece captains or leaders is that they've all been described as being selfish.
Yeah, I think he does kind of... You know who he reminds me of? Although we know nothing about the other person I'm about to say, is Yasop. In that he's looked up to, he's supposed to be cool and all that, and maybe he is.
Abandoned his wife and child.
He abandoned his sick wife and child. So, like, I think this kind of fits the mold. I'm kind of curious why Oda kind of has this kind of character so present, but we could ask his therapist more about that. Overall, though, this was a super fun chapter. I love seeing all the younger versions of the characters we knew. I think we've touched on most of what I wanted to discuss. I could talk about this chapter forever, but I won't. That last page, though, I agree with everyone. That's like chillingly iconic. And it's one of those pages. Alex, yeah.
I was going to say I want a reproduction of that.
Definitely.
Like, you know how you can get them at
jump stores and stuff. Yeah. Actually, if Viz is listening, I know sometimes at conventions they give out those 2-page spreads. This is a good one.
Yeah.
They have
That's great.
Give them the spoiler spread.
I mean, I guess, like, okay, let's say you saw this page before you started reading One Piece. Would this really ruin anything for you? Probably not. I don't know.
Only that laugh tail bit, maybe, but yeah.
Well, if it were all in Japanese, which those things are sold in.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But then you'll see it.
You'll see Roger laughing. To be fair, this was the only page I was spoiled after this chapter, since there was a big, lag. But it's still a huge impact, because just like being able to, it's what Matt said is kind of the takeaway, and just that it's kind of crazy seeing your hero, or I guess Luffy's hero here, walk amongst normal people. All right, that'll do it for the manga. Let's move on.
All right.
Guys, on this segment, we take a lot of pieces and we often put it together. You know what? After 10 years of this segment, I think it's about time that we give it a name, and we'll call it the Piece Together segment.
I have a question, Zach.
Yes.
You write these up beforehand?
No, that one I didn't. Ed, it's time too.
This piece.
What do we have on Discord?
Myself this week. So.
Oh,
yeah.
Ed, take it away.
Piece.
Yeah.
Okay, first one comes from Morgil. It says, I just had a thought. Since the current flashback showed Dogstorm and Cat Viper becoming official samurai, I now kind of want to see Cat Viper eating pizza, so we can call him a samurai pizza cat.
I'll write that down.
I'll allow it.
All right. Next one comes from Dune Alien, who says, last podcast, there was a question about Shanks not taking Luffy in his ship, and all I could think about was that if he did, Garp would have really lost his marbles, almost to the point that I feel Shanks was like, you know what, Luffy, just stay here. Also makes me want to see Garp's reaction to the hat the first time he saw Luffy with it, I guess. Yeah. I don't know. I think that's a good reason. I mean, I'd be afraid of Garp even if I was Shanks.
Garp's a scary guy.
Yeah, I mean, he fought with Roger. Yeah. All right, our good friend of the show, Joe, has a question. She says, hey, everyone. I hope everyone had a happy new year. I have a question for Steven that might be a bit daunting. Oh, boy. So what if sometime after One Piece ends, they re-release the series with newer translations akin to the treatment given to other series like Sailor Moon and Akira, changing certain names like Raftel, Rogue Town, etc. to match later reveals or puns the initial staff might have missed, and general touch-ups to help lead up to later reveals and twists translators had no context for early on. My general question for Steven, is this a job you would be interested in doing? I'm very interested in seeing your take on translations of older text. I understand you take on a lot of projects at a time, and a complete rework of One Piece would be a monumental task for anyone. This might be a bit of in a perfect world scenario, but I figured it didn't hurt to ask. Thanks for all your hard work, Steven, and everyone that works on the podcast, and here's to a happy 2020.
I thought Joe was auditioning. It's like, and can I do that?
If you weren't going to do it, would someone else? Well, who else would do it? I mean, sure. Yeah. In a perfect world, I would love to do something like that. Especially if they got paid for another 100 volumes worth of work, But,
that's so much consistent work.
Exactly. Sure. Like, yeah, there are certain things. I mean, as I mentioned in the manga recap itself, like this chapter is full of various things that were, done from previous translators that I would not have made that choice. And, that's fine. Like it's okay for that to happen. But, there are certain things that if I had my druthers, I would prefer to do it a different way. There are also other things that like you wouldn't necessarily want to go back and change, even if you know the full context, again, as I mentioned earlier in the show. So, it would be really fun, but I think it's also it's trickier than it sounds, like not just logistically, but like even in terms of how to translate things. Yeah, I mean, if the opportunity arose, I would definitely take it.
So, Steven, if they'd have so-called perfect editions, would they replace that part that says Shonen Jump at the top, or where it rewrites One Piece, and they'd write Stephen Paul's One Piece just for all of them? Sorry,
no, I would. I know you're joking, but I would not want that.
I'm just gonna write on all my volumes that you did. I'm just gonna write Stephen Paul's.
Put a little post-its
defacing.
Yeah, you can't sell it back to. You have to return it to the merchant.
Oh no, it'll sell for much more. Brian, what were you gonna say? Sorry.
I was just gonna say, to buttress Joe's point, is that like I will gladly volunteer the freelance to all the on the double page spreads of the Vits Shonen Jump app, which you can read legally on officially now, since you don't have any of the pirate websites to maintain with. I'll go in there and I'll actually like close the gaps on those things. Just literally give me a couple of weekends, I can get it done. I swear. But I only do it for One Piece. I don't care about any other series.
I mean, we've discussed this before. I think the idea of like a perfect edition version of, I guess I'm doing the 20th Century Boys version of One Piece, like hardcover. They have the color versions, I know, that have come out digitally, I think, in Japan, and like with a touched up translation would be really cool. I think I'd buy that.
I don't know. I wouldn't want all color. I would just want the color pages that appeared in the magazine.
Yeah, I'm fine either way. Yeah. I mean, at least like edition that even beyond the fixes in the translations and the terms had something special about it would be really cool. They've done a really good job with Urasawa's stuff at Viz. Doing that.
Yeah. So like speaking realistically, like in terms of what would actually happen rather than what, we would all want to happen in our own, fantasy world, is like there would need to be a different edition of the manga in Japan.
Right.
So you would have to have a deluxe version that came out from Shueisha, and then it would be like, okay, let's look into putting this out into English. And then you have the question of, okay, do we want to pay people to rework certain things? And then, you also get into questions of like, okay, well, clearly
and distribution and putting it on stores. Yeah.
All of that stuff. Yeah. That's
but One Piece is definitely popular enough in Japan to warrant that re-release. I don't know when.
Yeah. But it's also, they wouldn't do it until it was over.
Right, I don't even know if that's necessary, or maybe when it's rounding off.
They would not do it until it was over.
Oh, okay.
That's not their style. Yeah.
Yeah. But like even then, like everybody can kind of agree, I think, to a certain point. Even if just talking about like the way that sound effects were touched up, that like, the really old stuff, the English stuff, like you could improve on that. But at some point, you're going to get to a point where it's like, well, we're not really doing that much more to like, there's not much more of a treatment that we're actually doing to change any of this stuff. At what point is it no longer really necessary? You run into a lot of tricky questions like that. And, those are part of, the process of figuring out, is this really something that's worth doing? So yes, in a fantasy world, I would love to do something like that, but from scratch. But
I also think some of us who are older remember the old days of Vits where they did have like uncensored, like early Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, for example. They had the uncensored versions, and then maybe about 10, 11 volumes in, they redid and did all the translations to at least like more cater to Western sensibilities for a bit. And I mean, if One Piece,
they kind of did the same thing with One Piece. Zoro had the R in the first 3 volumes. I think
I have those. I have those volumes too, just to get those.
So do I.
And like that would be the only thing I would do is like just update the pirate lingo and kind of get rid of.
Yeah, the first few volumes definitely don't. I mean, so like Maddie, I know, posted the similarity, the chapter 19 thing versus the chapter 966 what we're up to. And so I was reading through chapter 19. I'm like, this is just written so differently. And I know it's not just Oda. I mean, it is also Oda because
it's partially Oda, but it's also the translator.
Yeah, things have changed. That was in the early aughts or early 90s in Oda's case, late 90s. And we're in the 2020s now. Everything's different. But I just want to make one more point on this, and that's that there are definitely, I saw like people out there who are like, well, I'll wait to get the volumes until they re-release it to fix all these things. And so I think, as we just answered here, you're going to be waiting until it's over, which may be sooner than we think, but probably won't be that soon.
Can I put you down for 120 volumes of that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm good for that, Stephen.
Yeah, well, I'm talking to the
I know,
the person who's just saving all of their shekels to pony up.
I think they're hoping for like Jill's treasure box kind of thing, like Anyway, Ed, sorry.
All right, next one comes from Stella, who says, "Hey OPP, I'm going to try and forget that 2 weeks ago I was accused of being Steven's alternate account." Anyway.
It's because he was complimenting Steven. Yeah.
Oh, okay, right. Anyway, I was listening to the One Piece read-through episode of Water 7 Part 1, and I was reminded that Luffy wanted a bronze statue, and OMG, he has one now. I wonder if he knows. I wonder if that was on purpose on Oda's part. Happy New Year, and keep up the wonderful work. Like in real life in Kumamoto.
The one in Dress. That. Yeah.
I thought they were talking about Dressrosa.
Yeah, me too.
No, I saw a lot of posts about the bronze statues of the Straw Hat crew on Twitter lately.
Those are probably me retweeting those, but yes.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Twitter recommends stuff too.
Yeah. Right, Twitter sometimes is smart and the rest of the time isn't. Ed, go ahead.
All right, next question comes again from Dune Alien, who says, "So I was also rereading Water 7 for the holidays, and I know the wood for the Sunny cost near $200 million, and Frankie spent a lot of money in the bar, but still the Sunny is completely decked out. So in this new year, I want to give a shout out to the unsung hero Iceberg, who probably fronted the bill for all of Frankie's crazy ideas and gave Nami a properly equipped ship, since Luffy spends all his money on parties. So here's a toast for Iceberg, and that this year I become more like him and stop throwing my money away like Luffy. Pretty figure.
Frankie. Yeah. I think they mention when he's like, I think Frankie in the, what do you call it? The Water 7 house that they're in the end of Ennius Lobby. Water 7.
That's the Galley Law
headquarters, right? Doesn't he say something like
they're being Berg?
I'll write that one down too. At the Airbnb, which is definitely now what I'm calling it forever. I think Frankie says something like, "I'm sorry I stole your money. We're going to do this like on the house. We're going to build you the best ship you've ever seen." Something along those lines.
Yeah, he didn't have to cost for labor because he did it all himself with the help of a couple of friends. So
other people volunteered. Remember, like he was doing it alone, and it's like, "Why are you doing this alone, Frankie? We'll help you out."
Exactly. Yeah, Talstone, Paulie, Lulu, and I think Iceberg were the only ones who helped.
No, I think then the rest of Galley Law just like joined in. Kaku and Lucci.
No,
all of CP9.
It was like they only went like the chiefs of the chief or participating. Okay.
Yeah. All right, next one comes from Straw Hat Pirate 9, who says, "Happy freaking New Year to us One Piece fans, because damn, this chapter was amazing." I'm sure you guys will go over every detail in the manga recap, so I just wanted to mention the 3 things I'm going crazy about. Number 1, Laugh Tale is 100% confirmed, and I'm loving it. Thank you, Funimation, for doing it right in the Stampede dub. 2, neither Buggy or Shanks went to Laugh Tale with Roger, and I am shook. And 3, Frankie actually met Odin. Are you kidding me? I started hyperventilating a little over that. It was crazy. This needs to be mentioned somehow in the present. It's interesting. Frankie doesn't seem to remember.
I think Frankie modeled his sideburns off of Odin, though.
Maybe, yeah.
maybe all that cola goes to the head, you know.
Maybe they're related. Memory. They have similar hair.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And finally, Big Joff today says, "I finally signed up for the Patreon and I'm loving the extra stuff. I really enjoy hearing your team talk about pretty much any topic. If Matthew J is on, I want him to know how great his well, you should probably just tell him when he's here. But I want him to know how great his podcast, The Deep End, and the Evangelion series are. I missed the deadline when I sent in my trivia question, but I really like it, so here it is. Only some of Luffy's crew have gotten chapter titles signifying they have joined the crew, usually titled the Nth Person, in order of those chapters being released. Who are they, and what is the number in the chapter title attributed to them? Not the chapter number, but the number of the person.
I know Chopper never got one, right?
Chopper and Robin never got one.
Chopper and Robin, yeah.
Did Brooke get one? No, Robin did get one.
This was a...
Robin got one with Frankie at the end of Enies Lobby.
No, that was Usopp.
What's the first? So what's the first one? Do you think?
The first one, not Mitten, that we didn't
Zoro.
get.
Zoro was
first person, and then
they translated it as the first crew member back then, I guess.
And then we got the fourth person, and then the second person.
That's right.
And then we got the third and seventh person.
That's right.
Yes.
And those were for who are they for?
You're
Zoro.
right. It's Usopp and Frankie.
Well, yeah, that's the last one, but
the last two. No, I just was putting two and two together because I knew there were two in that one. I thought it was Robin and Frankie, and
Robin's on hers.
It was Zoro. Then who are the next two?
Zoro, Sanji, Nami, Usopp, Frankie.
Yeah,
and Brooke, number 8.
Right.
Yeah.
Those
I guess he's not that consistent.
I remember this being a moment of a point of contention. With fans saying that, like, oh, well, Chopper's technically not in the crew because it didn't make a chapter title.
I thought that was stupid. I always just assumed, like, maybe a bigger moment for these characters were coming later. But the weird thing with Robin, since, like, her big moment we had, so I was like, why? I think you just forgot.
Yeah, I think me and Greg, I think at this point we both are like, yeah, he just missed his shot, and so I wouldn't expect him. I mean, if he meant to do it and he forgot, I wouldn't expect him to, like, come up with a big, like, now you're the real part of the crew just to fulfill that.
It's like,
why can't Seven refer to Robin and Frankie? Frankie's we're still waiting for.
Because Robin
because she's the sixth?
Yeah, there's no sixth.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like when you're a wrestler and you fuck up a move in the ring, you don't just go back and do it again like a dumbass. Like, fuck
you mean in wrestling?
Yeah, like don't go back and try the same move you just messed up. Just
what's next, Ed? Yeah,
that was the last one for Discord. That was a long
time. So let's do Ed. What do we call them?
Emails.
Yeah, that's what we call them. First one comes from friend of the show, Andy Yoho. He says, I have yet to hear your opening rankings, and that makes sense. That was a 4-hour plus episodes there. But I thought I would share mine. I enjoy listening to every song on a playlist, but I ranked them based on music, animation, overall cohesiveness, a pinch of nostalgia. I'm not going to be reading them all. Sorry, Andy. But I'll read his top 3 and bottom 3. That seems fair. His top 3 are Brand New World 1, Fight Together 2, and We Are 3. Those are all solid picks. And at the bottom, he didn't. Wake Up was a little too high. I think it was 18. I think Wake Up's too high if it's above 22. But he put Superpowers, We Are, Straw Hat version, and Kaze wo Sagashite at 22.
Has not come around on Kaze wo Sagashite.
Yeah, I think I know, Ed. You definitely. I mean, yeah, you're definitely leading that charge. Yeah, I guess it's true.
What's next?
Hey, so. If this is One Piece, should we be calling them e-snails instead of emails?
E-snail.
Next question comes from Ryan. Who says, Oda hit it out of the park for the beginning of 2020, and I'm so excited for what comes next. What do you think was found on Laugh Tale that made the Roger Pirates and Odin laugh to tears? Wrong answers only. I'm going to say my answer right now. He heard a fart, and I said that on Twitter, and I think what an amazing idea.
It's a giant sand sculpture of a penis.
No, it was Disney's original plan for this latest Star Wars trilogy.
No. You guys are all wrong.
Are you just leaving it there?
Yeah, that's it. That's
Wait, is anyone familiar with the Monty Python skit about the funniest joke in the world?
Yes.
That's exactly what I thought of. You'll never know.
That's why Roger died.
Is Oda a Monty Python fan?
I would not be surprised.
I don't think Monty Python.
I haven't caught any references yet.
Maybe.
Are you kidding?
Thing in Japan.
Oh no, Van Ogre was Baron from Baron Amatsuri, right?
No, Baron Munchausen.
But that's Munchausen.
Yeah, that's
close,
Terry Gilliam,
close.
but not
Terry Gilliam, right? But I mean, I'm just putting a lot of what do you call it, strings together here on the board.
Yeah,
it's a string.
It's a minor thing in Japan, but it was dubbed, and there is some recognition, but it's not a big big deal there.
I mean, Oda is of the generation; he probably would have been familiar with it.
And also, we forget, and we say this with all the love in our hearts, but he's a giant nerd. I mean, let's not forget that Oda's an enormous nerd. So I think I would not be surprised, is what I mean to say.
He's got a life-size Terminator replica in his office.
It's probably Joy Boy's book of classic jokes.
And his funny walks.
Yeah.
No, all I was going to say is that it would be great if after 22 years, it was just a giant fart joke, or 30 years, wherever we end up here, or something like a sand sculpture penis or whatever. Like, just like Oda had been pranking us.
It's Dr. Indigo's shoes.
That was basically me.
But they're giant now.
Yeah. Well,
Giant
here, I'll ask this. Would you
Giant articles of clothing in this series?
Well, here's the thing, though. I thought that. So my initial thought was maybe it is an actual One Piece bathing suit. Like, I know it's a joke answer, but like, what
Google
if it's?
Will be so happy.
What if it's the actual?
In Japanese, the one piece usually refers to a dress, like it's like a slip-on dress.
Right, because a bathing suit is just a mizugi. Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
but One Piece is like, if you search that, you'll get a bunch of dresses too.
Yeah. Every time Oda has done an SBS that's like making fun of that, or he like jokes about it, he's talking about a dress. Rather than
so I think the thing that's interesting about that is that well, at least in this chapter, Roger didn't say like, oh, the One Piece, right? Like, he referred to it as the One Piece.
No, he talks about Joy Boy's treasure.
Yeah. Right. Like, so that's Roger's name for it, is the One Piece, I guess.
Right. He coined that.
So really, it could be pretty much anything. I think it's a butthole.
Well, so this is what I want to ask. Would you guys be disappointed if it was a giant butthole, but if it was like basically a joke, like something like what we have just discussed? Wrong answers only.
Now. Yeah, I'm expecting that now.
Yeah, I mean, it can't be like a bunch of treasure, because why would Roger laugh at that? I guess
because Buggy wasn't able to see it.
Oh yeah,
he's a sadistic bastard. They're all laughing because it's like that kid wanted this the whole time, and he couldn't even make it because he had a fever. That's it for emails. What do we got on Reddit, Steven?
All right. Let's see. DDD Freed says, "Happy holidays, OP Pringle peoples. If you could change the release schedule for the manga in any way, what would you do? Would you release it on a different day, stack the breaks in a different order, perhaps have an official teaser image released each week? Personally, I'd like there to be one double chapter week every year where 2 chapters are released instead of 1. Even if this means an extra break week, I would be Frankie super excited for it every year. It would instantly become one of my favorite holidays. Might even have to take a day off work to celebrate it properly. Happy holidays again. Thanks for enriching my year as you have many years past with this wonderful story we all love so much."
I wish that chapter's released at noon on Sundays. That's what I want.
If we get to take a day off... If we get to take a day off every time One Piece comes out, I'd like it to come out Monday through Friday every single day, every single week.
I think that Oda should take a month-long break every year, like he did when Strong World came out, or not Strong World, when he did the time skip.
So a month-long break, but no more Oda breaks. Is that what you're thinking?
Do a time skip every year.
Yeah, no, God, no. That's a terrible monkey paw. what I'm saying is that in addition to his regular breaks, I think that a month off is also very good. But
yeah, I mean, I'll actually piggyback off of the fact that I like that idea. Also because Oda has expressed. So I've recently found my love of travel as an adult, and Oda doesn't get to do that very much since he is literally locked up in his house writing One Piece constantly. But he has also expressed, not just through the series, like all the places he wants to go, but in the SBSs. And I think it would be really cool for him to get that opportunity and to add that stuff to his story. I think would make it a much richer story. So I would actually really second that. Yeah.
If after One Piece is done, he goes on an Odin-esque adventure.
Yeah.
Although he should bring his family.
He should.
Well, Odin.
Yeah.
Odin had his family.
Well, not for that last part. Well, he still actually brought the kids, or one kid at least.
They were born on the high seas.
And they'll die on the high seas. I think actually having I think if you do that and just have 19-page chapters instead of 17, I think I'd be happy. That sounds good.
Mm. All right, ATLA for Life says, I saw on Twitter a correction about Kobe's rank from Rear Admiral to Captain again. Will this correction be updated in the chapter on the Shonen Jump archive, or are we stuck with the initial release version? And then, Tongari Dan says in response, it was updated in the volume in Japan, so probably the same thing here. So I haven't seen this yet because I don't have my copy of volume 95 yet. It is on its way to me. If it's something that got changed in the volume, it will be altered when we put the graphic novel out. So you'll be able to see an update if you have the digital graphic novel, like the whatever they price that at. But
much.
I wouldn't.
It's like 4.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect. I don't know what their policy is, or if they have an idea of what they're going to do as far as updating chapters, because obviously a ton of the One Piece backlog is just the straight up from the volumes, but at some point it becomes the weekly chapters in the Shonen Jump archive.
I doubt they're updating those individually.
Probably not. I mean, honestly, they probably just did that because they had to fill the backlog. But all of the extras and stuff is part of the experience of buying the volume. So I wouldn't expect to see that updated on the weekly chapters.
Well, Matt, who just went through everything, was saying the sound effects go away at some point in this. Oh, that's where you caught up with the simultaneous releases.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I don't think the point is not for them to be a living document that is constantly being tinkered with and fixed or anything like that. It's just sort of at some point it's not really worth it to go back and change little terminology things
by the volumes. Yeah,
right. That's the hope.
We're gonna go through 95 next week too. So
yeah,
probably
that's the plan.
Yeah, that is our current plan.
Blahaha X says, I haven't been listening with you guys for 2 years now and have been part of my One Piece experience. Thanks for the 4 hours. Yeah, I think so. Thanks for the 4 hours long content 2 weeks ago. It kept me company while I was cooking Christmas dinner. I tried to stay away from scans for the first time ever for the recent chapter. I know your opinion about piracy/scans, but I think piracy in general normally acts as a virtual competitor and has led to new business model and great services such as Netflix and Spotify. Scans will continue as long as Shonen Jump insists in keeping its traditional distribution.
When people say that, I wonder if they know the real origins of Crunchyroll. To not mention Crunchyroll on that list is...
Crunchyroll is the most prominent example of that. I mean, look, I think I mentioned this in the post that we originally had, we all came from scan culture, and the reason why I think we're being a lot more vocal about...
I'd like to leave it in the past, please.
Yeah, but I'm not going to make this a long discussion because we've had this discussion a lot, and I know people are getting sick of it and know our opinions. But I mean, obviously, we have grown out of scans. We don't need that anymore. That's the reason why we're more vocal about it, because now this person's absolutely right. Spotify, is I guess, very, very much evolved version of what came out of, the Napster, Kazaa, LimeWire, that whole sequence of illegal downloading of music. And so the same thing is kind of true, I think, with today's Shonen Jump, which has evolved to, I think this person's right, compete with what has been the illegal leaking of manga. Now, and just very quickly, I mean, Stephen and everyone else here might know a little more, but I know that the physical distribution is still the mainstay for Shonen Jump in Japan. So I'm doubting that's going to change anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, it would have to be a very drastic, sequence of events or state of events for them to completely drop it and lock it down.
Crazier things have happened.
Yeah. Because correct me if I'm wrong, the only possible justification how they can crack down scanslation, either having the authors turn in work earlier so they can digitally scan it and get it out before digital books or physical books are printed and sent to stores. Because that's the only way I can imagine you can clamp down on actual scanslations, getting copies of those books that are being delivered, which obviously those get leaked.
But I mean, even anime is illegal. Like, even anime that's readily available comes out the same exact time as it does there. There are still sites that throw it on there, so there'll always be something. It's just that the audience for that gets smaller and smaller.
Well, I'll compare it to how we work in my part of the entertainment industry. Is just like the first couple of seasons of Rick and Morty, season 2 did get leaked because someone hacked the code and figured out Adult Swim's code and got the first 3 episodes off the site. Yeah. So unless they're you're hacking servers or material, no one puts out material. But when you're dealing with an actual print publication, all these thousands of millions of copies are being sent to stores. It's very easy for someone who's kind of on that inside of working in retail, just take one of those things and put it on. I think that's why it's so hard to clamp down on illegal scanslations.
Yeah, that's it. That's the big problem. I mean, there are definitely sometimes people are just stealing it. Not, I guess the old version of hacking is just literally taking them from the factory, or people working in these factories.
And that's what I'm saying. The only way to really clamp down is literally have the authors delivering things earlier or holding on to them for longer.
Or not having a physical distribution until much later.
And then putting that out, and then, but that's, again, changing the whole process.
Yeah. I mean,
beyond that, it just comes down to accessibility. And that's where, we've had really huge leaps forward in the last year or two as far as expanding it to everybody.
I mean, I'll just want to say one more thing. Sorry, Stephen. In that I think one day that'll be the case. I think it will move to almost all digital at the very least, because it's just the way things are moving.
And save some fucking trees, by the way.
Yeah, I also think that wouldn't happen before One Piece ends. It will not happen.
I don't think so.
No, probably not.
Yeah, probably not.
So I think it's worth mentioning too that there are certain stores in Japan that do leak Jump early as well.
Yes. Yeah.
And there are people who have online been using that as an excuse for why scans are still a thing. But honestly, I think that is few and far between. I think it's more along the lines of what you guys were talking about for the majority of this stuff. Unless, I mean, shit, we were just in Japan. How many people did we see reading Jump on the train?
A lot.
It's like a newspaper. I personally don't see that happening for a bit, but then again, I am also not in that world, so.
But Alex, versus at least from the 2013 time I was there to being there last year, there were a lot more people also reading it on their phone, and I definitely saw people reading One Piece on their phone.
That's true. I do wonder if how much of their sales rely on the print publication of it, and if any part of that is also a tradition type thing. We've been in print for X amount of years, It's
Shonen Jump's over 50 now, right? So yeah, they've been doing it since the beginning. I don't see them stopping completely. I'm gonna say for a very long time. Anyway, Steven, go ahead.
It's like your Times Square stores. It's a legacy. It's there for recognition value, if nothing else. That's why you got it. So Falcon Gales says, so wait, if Shanks didn't go to Laugh Tale, what about him makes him so intimidating to the Gorosei, the Five Elders? I mean, they dropped everything to talk to a guy who only served on Roger's ship, but wasn't there when the truth was discovered. What kind of blackmail does he have? Did Roger pass down everything to him before he died? I just think sometimes Oda overhypes Shanks, and we don't have any kind of payoff yet.
I still say Shanks is a government spy.
We don't. I mean, that was a weird
Brian,
chapter.
You say that about everybody.
Oh, hi, Steve.
Hey.
He's been here this whole time.
Spying. For the government.
For the government.
Even watching you, Brian.
That's
We're not going to do anything.
Really in DC. To report to his overlords.
Reporting on all my seditions and seductions.
To be fair, Brian, you don't hide those.
Then this guy, Brian, he has far too many POPs. He's up to something.
Well, you're not wrong.
All right, what's next?
I mean, I think is in terms of actual answers for Shanks, it could be that there's some he could have some sort of celestial dragon descent or something similar to Doflamingo, where it was like, okay, there's an actual specific reason for how he got inside or something like that. Or it could literally just be like the sort of the law of like power respects power of like, okay, Shanks is a complete monster. Like he could, like if he wanted to, he could probably get in there and completely destroy them all, but that's not what he's about. And he's there to like have a dialogue with them about something that's important.
The only reason I can't buy either of those, because we've seen how the government treated the Doflamingo family when they got exercised. It wasn't like, oh, you used to be one of us, we'll still give you some respect. It was like, no, we'll still destroy you. And you got other figures like Whitebeard and Big Mom who they don't give any deference towards. They still treat them just like common pirates, regardless of how powerful they are.
That's like how they view them in terms of antagonistic terms. But like if Shanks is coming to tell them something, like they're going to listen, they're going to hear him out if he has something that he thinks they need to hear. Like he's, that's the whole thing about Shanks. He's the guy who got up in front of the war and was like, hey guys, like, let's not do this. Like, you know me. Yeah. I'm speaking the truth. Let's let cooler heads prevail.
And even Sengoku is like, only because it's you will we listen to you. But I think that suggests something more than simply an outrageous power that's rival to theirs, or even because like he even moves covertly, which is even more interesting. Like he knew how to get up there.
He's kind of the stand-in for Oda, I think. I think he's kind of like the Deus Ex Machina of this story. I think that's why he was able to do that. I mean, maybe we're overthinking or maybe I'm underthinking. But, like, I kind of just feel like Shanks is there when he needs to be there. And there's, like, an inherent trust that comes around Shanks, whether warranted or not, because of his relationship to Luffy and Luffy's respect for him. And I don't think there's any human being he respects more than Shanks. So it makes me think that he is trustworthy, but maybe incorrectly. I don't know.
Yeah, but he's still a pirate, so he's still, by definition, sort of antagonistic to.
As per chapter 19, I'm a pirate. Yeah, that's what I do. That's what he says. That's line for line.
Black Northwind says, I just realized something back in Orangetown arc in Buggy's flashbacks. This is referring to the chapter 19 that we've all been talking about. He fell in the water shortly after eating the devil fruit. So perhaps that's the reason why he became ill later, which is also why Shanks stayed behind with Buggy, because he probably felt bad about Buggy being sick in the first place. Luffy was right about saying that Shanks saved his life.
I like the gag in that chapter.
It's kind of circumstantial, but I think as a headcanon, that's a pretty neat.
I like that.
Yeah.
The timeline might match up too, because we don't know when Buggy ate that fruit. It could have been while they're on that final journey.
So I thought. So at first, I mean, I get we might be talking about this or have talked about it. But they are wearing the same clothes, but they also are wearing the same clothes the entire time. So, they're pirates. They have one set of clothes. I mean, look at Luffy. But so who knows?
Another headcanon, I'm sorry to say, that hasn't shown is that, remember back in that chapter, they talked about how mean the cook was and you don't want to cross him. And a lot of people and myself thought that would end up being Zeph. But we haven't seen Zeph at all.
That's true. Yeah.
So would this mean Buggy's just been wrong about a lot of things? Like Shanks was really nice to him, but Buggy still was like, no. He has his own memory. And he's like, nah, Shanks was a dick.
Yeah, if you read that chapter, the whole Luffy goes, "Oh, Shanks saved your life." That's the takeaway there. Yeah, no, Buggy's just an asshole. He's a lovable asshole, but he's an asshole. So he's just like, it was Shanks' fault that I hate it. Yeah. I don't think Shanks actually feels bad about him eating the devil fruit, but Shanks is a good friend. That's, I think, what we're supposed to take away from that, unless he's a secret government agent. But gotta keep Buggy alive. Gotta keep Buggy alive. Then number one, overseeing the One Piece, I gotta keep Buggy alive. Anyway, go ahead.
It's like the idea of Shanks just being like, it's like, hey, Buggy, if you choose to eat a devil fruit, that's you. And it's like, you live the life you want to live. And Buggy's just like, you're the one that made me do it. Yeah, but that's Shanks. He's such a secret agent.
Secret agent, Steven? Man. Get it right.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it for Reddit.
Ed, it's time to
piece the tweet. Yeah.
What do we got?
All right. First one comes from the Djinn, who says, seeing the Neptunians again and Zoe made me think that maybe they're related in some way. That maybe Neptunians were also punished for something they did in the past, and that's why they only obeyed the descendant of Poseidon, and Zoe only obeys the Kozuki's descendant. Interesting. Next one comes from 2256X, who says, so does this chapter imply that Shanks and Buggy don't know what's on Laughtail? Even if they didn't go themselves, I imagine they would know from the other Roger pirates. Well, can we assume that?
I mean, he did say we'll take our own ships, which would that's kind of a Luffy-esque, like, we'll do it ourselves. Also, we'll see for ourselves kind of a thing, maybe. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if they don't know.
Right.
Well, they did just with Stampede one. I think we all seen Stampede here. I could spoil it a little bit. When Buggy sees, the prize, the treasure in that movie, they wrote his dialogue very carefully, so he really didn't say too much about it. So,
yeah.
All right, next one comes from Sniper of My Heart. He says, I get that Oda is probably saving Toki's past for a cool reveal later, but at least give us a scene where Roger, like Luffy, says he doesn't want spoilers. Do you think Momo remembers going to Laughtail?
Well, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're not there yet.
Yeah, what did he say about meeting Roger? It was like, I met him once, but I barely remembered it, or I don't even remember it, or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, he was really young.
Yeah, it could be at the level where it's like, if Oda doesn't want to have him say that he knows, he doesn't have to address it. It can still work fine.
Yeah. All right, Mike Morris writes in to say, what a laughter. I mean, chapter. Next one comes from Chuck D, who says, I enjoyed the opening rankings, and I would love a flashback ranking after this one ends. But if that's a ways off, where does this one rank for you guys so far? It's got to be top 5. We did do that
right? Years ago.
Yeah, we did.
I should pull that up.
Yeah. Was that during like the rankings arc, Zach?
Okay, only people who listened to that Patreon episode would get that.
The good ones.
Yeah. I mean, I could look and see where we arc rankings through the.
I mean, it's not over yet. Like, it doesn't have all the emotional impact, so you can't really. Yeah. Like, I mean, it would have to be pretty low actually, because like all the other flashbacks are full stories.
Yeah, I think this one's been really fun, but I need that sweet emotional payoff
Oh no.
that Odin's gonna get when he realizes, oh shit, I said Odin.
But by the way, I remember we have those tiers for rankings. I forgot that the tiers for the flashback rankings are emojis based on how sad. So for those who are wondering,
I thought you were saying TEARS.
Well, also those. Well, the top tier was the crying face, like just the bawling crying face. So it works both ways. The tier. The Chopper was our number 1, and Vivi was our number 16, but they're all really good. Senor Pink was 15, so sorry, Brian.
Shame. You guys are all shaming me.
Yeah, well, Brian, you ranked it at number... Where did you rank Senor Pink? You ranked
probably within the top 5, maybe?
8.
8?
So,
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
There's a lot of flashbacks.
There were 16 as of 2017.
We've only gotten after that the Big Mom and probably
we did it right after the Big Mom one. Oh no, I'm sorry, we did it right after the Sanji Big Mom one, like the Sanji.
Sanji when he's with his family.
Yeah, that's
so
when
we
haven't
done Big Moms.
No, I mean that is short, but it's a good story. It's a very good story. It's got a lot of things.
Or is it fears?
It's got children getting eaten.
Yeah, that's definitely a feeling.
I mean, that deserves some.
Yeah, the most we've seen in a flashback before that was just like one human leg. So yeah, it's got to increase the stock of that flashback.
And not even in the anime. That was just in the manga. What's the next question, Ed?
All right. Pim Paul says, so do you think the something huge Roger was talking about in Zoe are the unexplained big things at the end of Thriller Bark?
No.
I mean,
probably not.
Yeah.
No.
No, it's a fart. We discussed this. Or a giant penis sculpture.
At this point, I think that's literally like that's Oda's puzzle box. That's his mystery box that he will leave. It'll be like, yeah, that was just a cool thing that I threw in there. You don't need to know what it is.
It's a horror-themed arc. There's always going to be a mystery monster.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a good point.
Like Jason Voorhees always shows up at the end. They're just like, uh-oh, scary. And you got white for Friday the 13th, 12.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think Oda should answer every question. I mean, this is like a thing that every major big series needs to kind of deal with. So if he's not going to answer any question, I'm okay with it being that one.
Yeah, that's literally the tone of the arc. That's what that is.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Although I could also definitely see him answering it, but
if I could throw in one more thing, I don't necessarily need the answer for Luffy's mom. Because because he answered it. It's Bonnie.
It's Don. Oh, damn.
Your parents were nobody.
Damn,
They're filthy drunk traders.
Palpatine.
They sold it for grunt money.
No. And then Shueisha has second thoughts, and then they force Oda to rewrite it that Emu is Luffy's mother.
and then Lando shows up. He's Usopp's real mother.
And then Luffy needs not one but two straw hats to defeat her.
All right. Oh my god. I'm moving on to the next question. Let's see here. Frida writes in to say that you can tell it's Buggy getting shocked. He's standing next to Odin by his nose. So you can tell that you can see Odin's hair and Buggy's nose next to him.
Ah, that's good. Yeah, that's a good one.
And also he got shocked like he did by lightning in chapter 100. Next one comes from a friend of the show, David Bednar, who says, this is from last week, but I'm still super curious for Steven's take. Is the road in Road Poneglyph spelled the same as Load in Lodestar Island? Is there a double meaning?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, and it was something that didn't occur to me until after we got that. So I actually had to go back and look because it'd been so long since we had that earlier chapter about the poneglyphs. And so when he did the Lodestar thing, he actually wrote it with kanji, and then the katakana, like the way it's pronounced, was over the top. It was furigana. And so the kanji literally was like, the star that guides the water's path island or something like that. So it was.
Why didn't you call it that?
Yeah. So it was very clear from the context, like, oh, okay, he's talking about a lodestar, like, a navigational aid. And so I was like, okay, that makes sense. And I didn't think further of it. And then like later on, I was like, oh, I wonder if that's like what he was going for. And so I went back and looked, and he actually in the road poneglyph scene, it's just katakana. Like the road is just literally just rodo. And I think I recalled after seeing that, that I wasn't 100% positive. Like there's no context. You could, translate that a number of different ways, including like just sort of, I don't know, like sort of like Rio poneglyph. It could just be a made up word that sounds interesting, but it's like meant to be the main thing. And I think I went with road poneglyph because they were talking about like, this is like, the path that you go, that like you need to find the four that shows you the way forward. And so like now in context, I'm like, yeah, I guess that could be what he was maybe going for. I mean, load on its own, LODE, is just like, it's like an ore or like a magnet or something like that. It's not necessarily something that you would associate with being a guide. So that's where like I, would not have put that together. But that would be that's, for example, could be something that like if we went back and redid everything, maybe that's something I would reconsider.
Well, you said like lord, and I've heard of like that term in like fantasy series in general, but like a magnet is a compass essentially.
That's true.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I'd also wait, where the hell was I going? Oh, a lot of these terms were named by Roger's crew, it seems, and it seems that they speak English from stuff like Laugh Tale. A lot of the terms that they have coined, including One Piece potentially, are all in English. So it kind of, I think, adds credence to the fact that they may have named road poneglyph because I guess they could have coined that term, because where else would it have come from? I guess I don't know. So I think that lends credence to your idea there that the katakana is referring to the word road. But who knows? I don't know.
That's it. That's the last one.
Okay, we're done. So let's round off.
All right.
This is the One Piece Podcast, episode 602 for January 6th, 2020. Thank you all for coming on today's episode. Filled with too many jokes, apparently. If you haven't, please support us on Patreon at patreon.com/One Piece Podcast. We just posted 3 full-length episodes, including Steve and Alex's review of Rise of Skywalker. And we also have an episode about our 600 episodes. And Steve and I talk about podcasting and all that fun stuff. So check that out. Patreon.com/One Piece Podcast. Matthew J., where could people find you?
I'm on Twitter at Mr. Matt J, and I do the show with Steve, The Deep End. About every show to ever air on Adult Swim, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/The Deep End, where we do a weekly show about the Venture Brothers every episode, and a monthly show about other Adult Swim-ish shows like Clone High and Golden Boy and Undergrads, Friday, the animated series, Acceptable TV, that kind of stuff. I make Cartoons 101, the podcast, also on my Patreon, patreon.com/Cartoons 101, where I interview animation creators like Brian. He was on to talk about working on Rick and Morty and the other shows he's worked on. And I also do about film series usually. So like the works of Satoshi Kon, Evangelion I did a series on adult animated films, Ralph Bakshi. I'm currently doing Don Bluth with a bunch of cool LA guests. And I also, as I mentioned earlier, I produce at Channel 101. So if you're in LA, please come to the screenings at Channel 101 every month. If you want to submit a pilot, we would love that. And check out the podcast, Channel 101, the podcast. We've got a lot of big stuff coming for 101 in the new year.
Cool. Thanks, Matt. Thanks for coming on. Well, hope to have you on again.
You.
Maybe every time you come on, it will be the most monumental One Piece chapter ever. So we'll have you on soon.
It will be because I'm talking about it.
Brian, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter as Dark King Zoro, all one word. Ranting about politics and sharing One Piece shit. And also you can find my old work, DeviantArt, Banendorf, also all one word. And you can check me out on episodes of Animation Success Stories podcast. That's ASS Podcast, where we interview animation professionals and talk about how they got into the industry and what were their inspirations in what they do. I think that's all I have to promote right now. Watch more Rick and Morty. First half of season 4 is all up. The second half is coming at some point in the immediate couple of month future. So check that out.
Thanks, Brian. Steven.
You may follow me on Twitter at Translatosaurus. Check out my work on One Piece and Samurai 8 on shonenjump.viz.com and at mangaplus.shueisha.co.jp. And also, since it wrapped up, go and buy some Vinland Saga manga to find out what happens after the anime left off, because it ends at a pretty good point. One of my favorite points of the story, and I'm sure there's a lot of curious viewers out there. So go check out those hardcovers because they're really nice, and we did a great job on them.
Thank you, Steven. Steve.
You could follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Steve Yurko is my name and the username. And of course, you heard about the deep end, but give us a listen. I was going to make a joke about how we could just, we could do our One Piece episode and we could just put in the audio from this podcast and it'll be the same episode. It was a better joke in my head, like most of my jokes. Also listen to Tune Sweet, the podcast I do with our good friend Doctor. And for all those that came by or said hey during MagFest, thank you so much. And I don't know. I have no idea what else to plug, so thank you.
Alex.
Well, you can always find me on Twitter at dude! All one word. I'm also on Instagram with the same handle. Please listen to Tohoyara, the podcast that I do with Joey and our friend Scott about Japanese film. We do it every month. New episode should be coming out this week. We had on Casey, a.k.a. Manovsky Article. We watched Gokei Body Snatcher from Hell. And check out patreon.com/superartfight. Yeah, Super Art Fight has a Patreon now with some behind-the-scenes stuff from our show that we did at MagFest and some other fun stuff. So also, thank you to, I guess, whoever came by it for Steve's table at MagFest on behalf of me. Because I got a cool phone strap out of it.
Thank you, Alex. Ed, where could the good people out there find us?
You are Zach_Logan on Twitter. I am Edward E. One Piece. I'm also at Weeb Trailers. Podcasts can be found at OnePiecePodcast.com, Twitter.com, YouTube.com, and Facebook.com/OnePiecePodcast. Our Patreon is at Patreon.com/OnePiecePodcast. OnePiecePodcast@gmail.com is our Gmail address. One Piece Podcast is our Skype name. Subscribe on Spotify. Subscribe on SoundCloud. Subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts, or call us on our phone number. Zach?
And that phone number is 347-497-MAGI.
Magic.
That phone number again is 347-497-6254. Or call anytime.
Anytime.
Call anytime.
With your truths of the world, your 100-year void answers, what the people of the D are, what the ancient weapons are. Please, we need to know these answers. And also feel free to send us your vast treasures. We like those as well. Patreon.com/One Piece Podcast. Anyway, we take vast treasure on a monthly basis. So thanks again to Matt J for joining us this week. Next week, we will probably be back for our Volume 95 SBS look-through with Steven here. And then after that, we have a really cool couple months of guests coming up here on the One Piece Podcast. I just want to go through before I let you go.
Before that, though, we'll also have a double anime recap next week because there wasn't one this week.
That's true. Thank you, Ed. Next week we'll probably be doing our Volume 95 episode. After that, we have from ANN Crystalline Hodgkins. She is the managing news editor, I believe, is her title. Grand Line Review from YouTube on the 26th. Eye Patch Wolf is joining us February 2nd. Henry Thurlow, animation extraordinaire at for One Piece, is returning on February 9th. We're having our second Kuja cast on February 16th. And Dan Dockery, and Dan Dockery is rounding off the month of February for us. So check all of that out. Please do not miss this year. This is going to be a good year and a good decade of One Piece podcast episodes, although things might end in One Piece before the decade does. We'll see. So, with that out of the way, we're going to see you next week, everyone. My name is Zach.
My name is Ed.
My name is Steve.
And my name is Alex.
Happy New Year, everyone, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Couldn't end it better than that.
If they were watching one comedian do stand-up, which would it be?
Carrot Top.
This was a long time ago, so Louis C.K. I think it was.
Oh,
it's before we knew.
So when Luffy shows up there and it's still Louis C.K., he'll be like, "Oh, this sucks."
He's like, "Oh, he's so disappointed."
They banished me to this island.
You're part of that worst generation. You're the worst generation because you get offended by everything.
The final island is where they send all the canceled comedians.
That is the one.
They live
you can
now.
go and you can still enjoy them without anyone knowing. That's the true One Piece.
Just the fucking broken comedy joint.
Yep.
Okay.